This is an experience of the void.
Hey, I'm Christina. Welcome to the Void podcast. This week's show is dedicated to a super deep dive with Greg Puciato, who burned his place onto the musical stage with Dillinger Escape Plan, and in the last few years has made some really incredible music as well. So with The Black Queen, which is this sort of dark wave badass thing, his solo work, which, it's like one of the albums of the year. Then Killer Be Killed, who have their long-awaited second album out today, with Max Cavalera, Koller from Converge, Troy Sanders from Mastodon. In this thing, we talk about the dark days of Dillinger, what it's like living in that fishbowl, crucible bubble, and how dark it can be, how we could come back to it as a more actualized adult human being. Talk about like mind expansion and ways that we both kind of found new ways to look at the world through like psychedelic experiences and other forms of mind expansion. We talk about the trajectory of the planet. Yeah, I'm just inviting you to come in, chill, spend a couple of hours, and go deep into a really fascinating artist's brain.
The numbers all go to 11.
Christina, what's up?
Hey, it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah, it has. It's been too long.
It's been a journey, a mystical journey.
It's been a very magical, transcendent, flamboyant journey.
You've made a lot of cool stuff in the last few years.
Oh, stop it.
Yeah,
no,
you have though.
No, stop it.
It's all the colors and flavors.
It's so much. It's all the sass, you know. It's
yeah,
all the
it's true. Your poetry book was cool.
Oh, yeah.
Those little musings.
Yeah, it's neat.
Yeah, it's you're psyched. Well, we'll get it.
Yeah, I'm just like, okay, cool. You know, I mean, I can't even look at that thing. I don't look at it. It's so personal that I can't look at it. You know, so I know that I put it out, but I don't look at it. I won't open it. I've only got like 3 copies of it, and I won't open it. Like I won't look at it.
Well, it's confronting sometimes. Like there doesn't get.
I was in a really horrible period when I wrote that. You know, I was in a really horrible period during that time period. So like, I don't really remember a lot of that time period. I don't really like pretty much like 2015 to 2018. Oh, sorry, 2015, 2016, and 2017. I don't really remember a lot of, you know, so I kind of really warped from like 2014 to 2018 in my mind, and everything that happened in that other period was like this dark period of anxiety and depression and panic and shit. And you know, that book just came out of like I needed to have some kind of creative outlet during that time, and like poetry and photography was sort of all I could do because I was on tour from a lot of it. So but I know, like, I was in a really bad mental state, you know, during that time, and that was, I don't remember a lot of it. Like I said, I didn't form a lot of memories that are attached to me. Like it just seems like that period didn't exist. But that book is like definitely a time capsule of that time period to me, and but I can't look at it. It's too much. It's too vulnerable, and it's too revealing. It's too much. So yeah, it's over there. I'm aware that people have it, and that's neat. But you know, moving on.
How did you get out of it?
Fucking woke up the day after the Dillinger Escape Plan. What do you mean?
That was the moment?
I mean, it was a lot of things, you know. There was a lot of things that were happening at that time, and I just needed to get through a lot of shit, man. You work through shit. I've been to therapy for fucking ever. I've gone to 8 million therapy sessions for the last 10 years. I've been in therapy, you know. So it's like there's a million issues that, you know, I don't know. I just got out of it. Like you just work through your shit. Like you work through your shit. Like you know, and you get toxic relationships away from you and toxic things away from you. And like I didn't really enjoy the final like few years of the Dillinger Escape Plan. So it's like getting away from that and like just closing up some things in my personal life that kind of were like ongoing, and getting out of some toxic scenarios, and kind of just coming to terms with some other things that, like, you know, everyone's carrying shit. You know, everyone deals with their shit. And when you spend most of your life touring and most of your life in this fucking weird fishbowl existence that like travels around, this bubble that travels around, where you're only growing within the bubble. You're not growing outside of the bubble. You're just all these people that aren't changing. You're stuck. You know, you're stuck with your 21-year-old self, and you really don't grow that much when you're in the bubble, because you're just in this day-to-day loop of insanity where like you don't have it's like your life is so different from a normal person's life that you're developing psychologically much slower than a normal person would in some areas, but much faster in other areas, because you have this heightened crazy existence. And you know, I think that we all got to the point behind the scenes where we were dealing with so much stuff that we weren't able to handle because of the size of the thing that was taking up all the space in the room, that by the time we really called it a day, we needed that thing to go away, because we couldn't actualize as individuals like full pictures of our lives with
Whoa.
that thing still in the room, you know?
Yeah.
So the only way to see, you know, and you could feel that inside, and it causes panic and anxiety and depression, because you're like, you know, the alarms are going off in you that the things that you're not doing, and the things that aren't happening, and the things that you're missing out on, whether it's, you know, for me, artistic and creative and actualization wise in that department, are, and other people might be like family and things like that, like the things that you're not doing in the parts of your life that you're not missing, in the developmental stages that you're not going through, those alarms are becoming louder than the excitement that you have for the thing that's keeping you from doing all those things, you know, and like that we had to get that thing out of there. And so that, but you didn't make the decision and then do it right away. You make the decision, then you fucking drag it around for 2 years, you know, like, but you're
Like
ready when you
breakup.
make the decision. You're ready when you made the decision, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just like, okay, you know, we didn't do it for us. Like, we did it for fans. Like, we did it so that we would be like, hey, everybody, we're out of here. And then everyone says we're a dick and we didn't give them time to see us and all that stuff. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to go to everywhere under the sun and just make sure that, you know, but it, you know, it's like, fuck, it's like you're stuck. You're like, fuck, I just can't wait to get to the other end of this. And then you know, also the flip side of that is like, it's also kind of a black hole. It's an event horizon. So you're like, how am I going to feel on the other side of this? And, you know, it's been all fucking killer.
Yeah. Kill or be killed.
Like last 3 years have just flown by, and I've never been more stoked than I am right now, you know, so.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you've had
life
more?
Fucking rips.
Life rips right now?
Yeah.
I mean, you're in some really good bands.
I don't know, man. I can do whatever the fuck I want, you know, creatively.
Yeah.
So there's nothing stopping me from doing anything I want. Like, I've all, you know, between the Black Queen and Kill to Be Killed and solo stuff and collaborations behind the scenes that are happening that I can't even talk about. Like, there's Federal Prisoner. Like, there's no limit to what anything I can create, I have an outlet for. There's no limit to, you know, and once touring gets re-added back into that, like, the full picture of my life is going to be exactly what I want it to be at 40 years old.
That's beautiful.
You know, if we ever do decide to do a Dillinger Escape Plan to fade that back into our lives, we can do it from a standpoint of being fully formed, so that we can control how much space that thing takes up in our life, and do it from a position of power, instead of feeling like, because when you're in something, you're like playing chicken with one another. Like, you know, people be like, oh shit, Greg's doing all kinds of other shit. Like, that's kind of threatening, because you know, maybe it's going to create a situation where, you know, Greg doesn't want to go on tour at some point, or Greg wants to do this other thing, or Greg wants to, and then people start having kids, and you're like, oh shit, is that going to mean that such and fuck doesn't want to come on tour as much? Or, you know, so everyone's kind of like seeing that the other people are trying to grow outside of it, but you can't quite get there, you know, because you're stuck with this thing. So you get rid of the thing, and then over time, you know, once you become the full adult version of you, and where you're, you know, you see the bigger picture of your life, then, and everyone, maybe you can let that thing back into the room and kind of let it take up a more balanced space for everyone, or maybe not, you know. Like, that's not a conversation that we've even had. So it's an
exciting prospect.
But I can see that, like, it's like everyone seems to be going in the ways that they're going to go as people. So it's like in 5, you know, 3 or 4 or 5, 10, 20, however many years, you know, it's like you can let it maybe reapproach something from a position of being like, oh, you know, they can do this a few times a year or something, you know. You don't, we'll see, who knows, you know, or maybe not at all. So who fucking knows?
Well, it's good to know that you can look back on it, and as a newly evolved person, know that you could have a different relationship with it.
Well, I'm proud of it. I'm super proud of it.
Yeah.
I'm super happy with everything. And it's like, I do think that, you know, in hindsight, that, like, yeah, I mean, everything kind of happens the way it happens. And like, you know, obviously that I incubated a lot in that band, and like grew a lot of my talent and my you know, creativity in that band. And kind of, you know, obviously since it's been ended, it's been like an explosion for me. So that's showing me how much I was, you know, that I, you know, it's like, fuck, like, I would be on tour. I wouldn't be able to do half the shit that I did in the last 3 years, because I'd be on tour playing fucking Panasonic Youth 5,000 times. You know, so it's like, you don't need to do that, man. Like, you don't need to fucking do that. Like, I want to live an active living life where you're doing things that are alive and present and like new, and fucking, you know, not just recreating the same thing over and over and over and over. And so it's like, we don't, you know, you can fucking, I can look back at it. I'm proud of all the records. I'm proud of all the shows. I don't think I would be where I am now as far as like developing my talent if I wouldn't have done all of it. So it's not like it went on for too long. I think it was exactly as long as it needed to be.
Yeah.
And
it's perfect, man. You went out on top, like.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
it's like I don't think we were going to decline. I don't think it's like you could give me if you gave me a microphone right now and said you have to play a Dillinger show in 10 minutes, I would fucking rip
Nail that
that
shit.
room. I would rip that room out of the fucking frame, you know? So it's like I know that like I'm just as good, I'm better vocally, I'm in better physical shape. So it's like I know that it's like not even a question of that. It's just a matter of like, did I want that thing to take up that much room in my life at that point? It's like no. And I think all of us felt the same way. And now, but you know, like I said, now we can look back at it and be like, that was fucking cool. And it's always a part of me. It's not like
Yeah.
like I said, like I told someone else the other day, it's like, so you're Bill Murray, and like you get to the point where like all you want to do is fucking stop talking about Ghostbusters. Like I don't fucking want to talk about Ghostbusters. You spend 20 years, or you're Harrison Ford, or whatever, you spend all this time just trying to get away from Han Solo or Ghostbusters, and then at some point, and you do that because you need to be able to come back to it from a position of you own it, it doesn't own you.
Yeah.
You know, so like you got to get away from it. You got to get away from it and develop all this other shit, so that then you can integrate it back into your life without it defining you.
Yeah.
You know? And you can come to it from a position of appreciating it and be like, you know what, I'm not just Han Solo, but I'm always going to I'm always going to have that too. It's a part of me. It's not all of me, and that to me is the difference. Is like you got to have something be. You got to get to the point where you can all feel happy with it being a part of you, not all of you. And you know, and that's really it. That's it. That's my nugget for the day.
That's your nugget. It was a hearty nugget.
Yeah, I'm like Yoda now. You know, I'm like a
Yeah.
Zoltar machine. My old age, turned 40, and I'm like, let me tell you something, son. Give you, hey boy, come here. Let me tell you something. I'll give you like a little nugget of wisdom.
Yeah.
I'm an wise black man. I'm an old wise black man inside. It's coming out now. It's like,
Yeah.
Christina, I'm gonna tell you something. I'm gonna tell you something about forming a full picture of your life. You can get sometimes a Dillinger Escape Plan for a little bit.
Yeah. It's so good though.
Yeah.
Like I love getting older. Like you
it's great.
make so much
Why?
peace with it. Like you make so much peace with everything. And I had like a pretty pronounced nervous breakdown in about 2015. And I just burnt myself out in a different way. And ever since then, it does open your eyes to things. And it does kind of, when you can kind of transcend that, I think it does give you a new lease on life. And from a creative standpoint, you end up finding all this stuff that maybe was laid dormant during that period, like because it can be confronting. I mean, did you find dark periods creatively like beneficial or hard?
Yeah, I still do.
Yeah.
I still do. Like I don't write unless I'm in an extreme state. So I feel like as a person, most people that are, you know, emotionally stable and healthy and energy wise, they're stable and healthy. They live between 0 and 10, and they primarily live between like 4 and 7. You know,
Yeah.
I feel like I live between like -5 and 15, and and I try to not write unless I'm in -5 to 0 or 10 to 15. Like I don't really write in the middle. I mean, so to me, I'm like, you're not going to be able, because you know you have an emotion and you want to, you know, art is the abstract expression of your emotion and your soul, right? So that's all art is. It doesn't matter. You're not a guitar player. You're not a singer. You're an artist, and whatever tool that you have in front of you, that's the thing that you're using to channel this abstract expression. So like if you're gonna have an emotion, by the time it gets translated to people, it waters down naturally. It waters down, like, you know, through the process of recording and all this, just kind of everything, it waters it down. So in order for the idea to live, by the time it reaches people, if you want an idea to hit them at 10, you have to be at 15, you know, when you write it. Or if you want it to feel depressing to a normal person and you want it to be 0, you have to fucking write it when you're suicidal at like -5. So like you got to really be in some extreme state of emotion. And for me, I don't feel creatively engaged unless I'm in those states. Like I don't feel like I don't treat writing like an exercise. I'm not like, I don't just wake up and feel like, oh, I'm going to pick up a guitar or I'm just going to write a thing. It's like, I don't care. You got to wait for that shit to come to you. And you got to be either really excited about the idea, like, or you have to feel some strong emotion. Like I'm really pissed off, or I'm really depressed, or I'm really fucking feeling like some strong state of longing or love or emotion, or so whatever it is that you're dealing with, you have to feel fucking like level 15, level -5. Like you got to be on the fucking in the red in one of those areas, for me at least, for it to, because it's what happens is I end up feeling like the creation helps release it. It's like I'm encapsulating it. Like it's like almost like a sneeze or some kind of anxiety that you start to feel, and then you produce this little egg, like and like, bloop, here it is, and I'm gonna pop out this little idea, and that gives you a little bit of a release for it. For me, that's how I've always dealt with it, you know, as an only child, and like I've always dealt with extremity of emotion through creation.
Yeah.
And once by creating, it helps me to encapsulate it and release it. And then other people relate to it because you gave them something raw and something real, and you didn't make music because you were a fan of a genre, or you weren't like, oh, I like this guy, so I'm going to try to sound like this guy, or I like this kind of music, so I'm going to write music that sounds like this. It's like, no, just do the thing that's pure and raw and put it out, and then people will relate to it.
Yeah, well, I was talking to Michael from Swans about this, and I'm like, it's a greasy vessel. It depends how like greased the vessel is, but I don't know. You can say that it won't hit someone else at 15. Like, I understand the premise of watering it down, but I don't know, man. I think you have hit people at 15.
Well, that's good too. That's
Yeah.
fucking cool. I try to really preserve the idea. I try to keep the feeling as close to raw as possible,
Mm.
and I feel like as I've gotten older, that is something that I've kind of like accepted as like part of my skill set, is being able to like really preserve like a raw emotion for people. And
Yeah.
like I don't really know why I can, but I do. I am aware of it. Like I'm aware that like I can fucking get right to it and get it out of me, and some
Yeah.
kind of like maybe I've just done it enough now that like I'm like, oh yeah, I can get right to the thing and I can pull it right out of me, and make something out of it, and like not and it doesn't get too watered down. And I
Yeah.
don't know, like
What?
I don't have it in me. Like I feel like I'm corrupting. Like I feel like I'm fucking like corrupting myself. Or like if you start to like corrupt your idea, like it's like it feels slimy. Like you feel like you're shitting on your own your truth. It feels like you're
Yeah.
fucking shitting on your own truth, and like you're trying to like it's like you're almost disrespecting the fucking muse. It's
Yeah.
like the universe is going to stop giving it to you. If you disrespect it too much, the universe will fucking be like, you know what? I'm going to start giving all this shit to somebody
Yeah,
else. And like
totally.
that's how I kind of feel. It's like, at this point, it's like I'm 20 years deep, and it's like I feel like I'm still, it's like I'm really prolific, and I feel really creative every single day, and I feel like I haven't, my emotions are still kind of like really wide, and like I haven't really fucking, my edges haven't fell off or anything yet, and like I
Yeah.
haven't smoothed over, so I feel really grateful, and like, but that shit can run out, and I'm very aware of that, and I'm very
Yeah.
aware that. So you start taking it for granted, or you start disrespecting the fucking purity of the idea too much, and like I said, the universe might be like, guess what, bud? You're not getting any of these anymore, and then
So
he'll just fucking
how
Mr. Universe will
powerful
push
is
it
the
away.
power of fuck you energy? Do you ever have
Oh,
fuck
so
you energy? Like I
all the
think,
time.
yeah, I
I'm
feel like
for
that's
fuck you.
really good. Fuck you energy
Yeah.
is really
Oh,
helpful.
I make up competitions I make up false enemies and false competitions, and imagine false people telling me that you can't do that, you can't do this, and you shouldn't do that. And I'll just get so worked up and so pissed off over something. It's like probably doesn't even exist, just to try to bury someone, or just to try to bury like some imaginary person. All it takes is one person fucking telling me something that I can't do, or slighting me in some way that they didn't even realize. And I will spend the next 2 years burying that person behind the scenes.
That's very cathartic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you get a lot out of it. You get a lot of drive out of that. You're like, I'm gonna fucking bury this motherfucker. Or like, someone says something that you can't do or you can do, and it's like, not only am I gonna do it, but I'm gonna fucking do it to the level that you can't even fucking process.
Yeah, well, with like Killer Be Killed, I mean, obviously there's an element of mortality in that, and allegedly the origin story comes back to like a gig for Chi from
Hmm.
Deftones.
Yeah.
What have your own experiences of mortality shared, and the ones you've loved and your own, taught you about like life?
Um, I don't know. I'm
That's
like
kind of a
really,
big question. I don't know.
that is a big question.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what, the fact that we're racing towards the fucking void? Like,
Yeah.
like I don't, I mean, you obviously have some sort of, isn't your thing called the void? Yeah.
Yeah, it
Like,
is
it's like
called the void. I like the void. It's
you're,
empty and it's full.
yeah, I mean, I'm full of existential dread. Like my whole thing is like, I think I stay so busy partly because I can't, like, I have a really hard time with stillness. Like I really have a hard time with all of it. Like I have a hard time with knowing that my time is constantly running out, and like I'm acutely aware of that whenever I stop doing things. And I think that I use creativity and work and workaholism and whatever being addicted to making stuff is, and I use that as like a salve. Like I use
Yeah.
that as like a way to cure the anxiety and the depression that I start to feel when I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's the only thing that I really love, to be honest with. Like, I love my friends and stuff too, and like there's people I love, but like I have really, really, really loved this, and I've been doing it since I was 9 years old. Like, I've been pretty much blinders on only. Like, there's nothing in my life that comes close to how I feel about this. Like, about making stuff, about touring, about like creating, about art, about the journey of like artistic, about the journey of self-discovery that is kind of married to the artistic journey for me. Like, I'm so into it, the psychological growth that comes from it, the creative satisfaction, the artistic growth that comes from it. And I think that the flip side of that is I've kind of used that in a lot of ways as like a remedy for depression and anxiety. And I don't know a little bit what would happen if I didn't have that anymore. So I'm a little bit more aware of that than I used to. It used to cause panic in me, I used to it used to cause a lot more panic. I don't have that anymore. Like, I don't have panic attacks and shit like that anymore.
Awesome.
But I don't and I don't want to, I don't feel suicidally depressed. It's like, but that often. But like, it's because I'm doing this all the time, and like I've accelerated my output to such a degree, and I feel much better than I did when I was doing it less and had to tour all the time. So
you found this like a positive thing in some way. Like, I do think it feels like this like the last year of whatever this is.
No, I haven't, because I was already done. Like, my record and the Kill to Be Killed record were already done before this started. So like, to me, I've been busier than shit, but it's been busy on like the work end of like getting something set up to release, because it's like Prisoner takes up a ton of time, self-releasing something takes up a ton of time, making videos, doing press, coming up with, ideas for rollouts, and fucking just tending to all the shit behind the scenes. And even on the Kill to Be Killed end, it's like I'm involved in I like micromanage every single fucking thing. And there's, a bunch of other stuff going on too. It's like there's Black Queen stuff, there's collaborations behind the scenes that are going on, there's all kinds of shit. So even without my social life and without being the full picture and without touring happening, it's like I'm so fucking busy. It's like I'm busier than I've ever fucking been, to a degree that I can't even imagine if I would have been able to tour this year. It honestly would have been too much. It would have been too much. I would have been too stretched and I would have burned out. So like, but I'm ready now. Like, I'm ready for it to come back. I fucking miss the full picture of my life for sure. But
it's like a whole.
Yeah. But as far as creativity goes, it's like, I'm an only child, and like I spent all my time growing up, like anytime I realized that like I got rid of anxiety by playing guitar and writing songs and singing and like making art and doing that kind of shit. And when I'm on, when you're spending 2/3 of your life kind of touring and you're not doing as much creating, like I feel like that was worse for me. So now having the creative angle of it be a little bit higher than it used to be has been really good for me.
Well, like I was talking to Maynard last week, from Tool and Pucifer and stuff, and he was talking about.
Are those exactly who he's from? I thought you were talking about Maynard Jackson.
No, Maynard James Keenan,
the plumber from Idaho. No, dude, who the fuck else are you talking about?
But like said the same thing, like the creating thing. Like, I'm like, I can take or leave the live show. Like, I love it, but the thing that I get off on is really the creative process and the creating. Yeah, that is the thing that.
It's almost hypnotic for me. It's like I get into a trance. You get into a trance state, and like the time passes so crazy. Like, you can just be like 5 hours later, you're like, fuck, you know what I mean? What was I doing? Like, I've just been playing guitar for 5 straight hours, or you kind of just get into like a zone, and like you come out, you feel so much better. You don't have as much anxiety. You're just like, man, that definitely helps.
Well, you've got some really special people. Anyway,
back to your mortality thing. It's like, I don't know, like fucking. Just try not to think about it, Like, I'm definitely more aware now of. It's weird because I feel so much less anxiety about it than I used to, but I'm closer to it than I used to be. So it's like when you're 30, you don't think about dying. Like, you're more. I feel like I was more scared of it when I was younger, but the reality of it is closer to me now. So that's really interesting, because it means that psychologically your brain prepares you. It's like you don't see 95-year-olds like screaming and freaking out while they're dying. So there's obviously some kind of psychological process that happens over your life to kind of prepare you for it. And like, even though I'm closer right now to my odds of getting cancer or having a heart attack right now are higher than they were 10 years ago, I feel less concerned about it. So it's really interesting.
Maybe we're built to do that, because otherwise we'd go insane if we had like, if the existential dread like built up to a point.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, I think, I think I don't know where it came from, but kind of in some ways creating music and leaving is a way to escape mortality on some level, because you are leaving parts of yourself there forever. And you kind of, I mean, for me, it's like the thing that I've learned from is like the time with someone is finite. Like, even if you are with them till your dying day, you're probably not going to die together, you know? So at some point you're going to have to deal with that. Like, it's just, so it's like.
That's crushing. That's what crushes me now, is the idea of like, that's heartbreaking. The idea of like fusing yourself to someone forever and then that person leaving is fucking crushing. It's crushing.
Yeah, and so, it's like you can't think about it too much, or like you'll do your own
I just avoid that by completely by having a full attachment disorder and not getting close to anybody. So that's a way to get rid of that.
It's like it's confronting. I mean, that's one approach. That's that's
how I've dealt with that.
Yeah, it's confronting. Like it's a. Well, like in terms of like relationships, what have you kind of learned from Max? I think he's a really interesting character. Like those Cavalera brothers are quite,
I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. Like I don't know what I've learned from.
What's this been like? Yeah, like what's been unique about it?
What Max? What my relationship with? Like,
this album and stuff with Killer Be Killed.
Oh, I mean, it's. I mean, the cool thing for this is that like we've all known each other for like we've intersected in really weird ways along life, and it's like that's one of the coolest things about if you get older and you like stay in the lane, if you stay on the track that you're supposed to be on, you just keep getting all these weird signposts and things tying in from other times of your life, and like it's like it starts to get so trippy and like kind of like. You're like, fuck, man, it really fucks with your idea of linear time and whether or not we're all just hallucinating. And it's how, it's like, fuck. So like, you have like, someone like Max, who it's like, after, me and him have been friends now for like a decade, but like, this is a guy who, when I was 10 or 12 or 13 years old, like I was listening to his band, and then like Troy and Ben were too, but then Troy and I were friends at like 22 years old. Ben and I knew each other from like when we were like 22 years old. So we have different intersections. And they all now, as we're getting ready to put this record out, it so trips us all out, that we're like, fuck, man, we have all these weird little intersections. It's like when I was listening to Sepultura when I was 13, I wasn't like, I'm gonna be in a band with that guy, and I'm gonna show that guy riffs. I'm gonna be like, hey Max, or I'm gonna send him voicemail messages with riffs in them, and we're like shit like that, or like and then when I'm on tour with we're playing a festival at Converge when I'm 22, I'm not like, hey Ben, we're gonna be in a band together in 18 years, or Troy, I'm not like, hey Troy, we're gonna be in a band together. You don't even think you're gonna be in a band in like 2 years when you're that age, So it's like, and then if you trip each other out and go, hey, did you guys all think that we were gonna be in a band with Max Cavalera when you were 13? So it's like we have all these weird little things that you're constantly like, that's wild. You got to go back and like tell yourself at different stages of your life, like if you're gonna go, you go back and be like, hey, this is cool. And like you have to be able to access that 13-year-old and that 22-year-old and that 30-year-old and like kind of be like, hey man, this fucking thing is gonna intersect with you again later on, but it's gonna be in this completely different capacity and a completely different role, and like it's all trippy, man. I mean, it happens all the time. Like the older you get, the more it just fucking like people that you're a fan of become your peer, and they're just like guy that you were a super fan of when you were 13, now you just send memes to, so it's like send memes to one another. So, or like a band that you used to be in competition with or something, now two of you are in the same band, or it's like all fucking wild, and you just keep on going, Do
you think it's from being on the same frequency that you align with people? That's the reason?
Well, I think that we're all the same person, I think that we're all the same fucking person having some sort of collective, experience, and get too psychedelic, but I definitely think that we're all the same energy blob that's manifesting itself in, trying to figure itself out and creating different experiences and different people and things to try to figure itself out. And like that's why it's so offensive when people are mean to one another, and why people are racist, or people are subjugate someone else, because you're offending, you're going against yourself, like you're hurting yourself, like you're the same, like
totally,
it would be like if you're punching your left arm was punching your right arm, and each one of your arms thought that they were different arms. Like you're hurting yourself, and you're hurting another person, and like that's crushing, and it's idiotic, and when you see people, that act shitty to one another. It's like those people must have a completely different understanding of what this is, what this reality is, what this thing is that we call life, to be able to do that, to be able to get off on like thinking that life is all about getting the most or trying to beat someone else or like getting above someone or hurting someone. And it's like, dude, you're fucking missing the whole point, So for me, yeah, I don't know. It's like I can't understand it anymore. Sometimes it's like it's all like a lot, like I said, like the older you get, the more it becomes a lot, and the more like you meet people that you have some weird thing with that you're like, fuck, or like you say something and like the thing that you said, someone calls you to talk about 1 minute later. Like there's all this shit that starts to happen that you're like, what the fuck? I just, you send a text to someone and then someone else texts you about that. And it's not like a relevant new thing that you're talking about. It's like something that you just brought up from 15 years ago, like, fuck it. There's just all these things that happen all the time. And you're like, what a fucking trip. It's like one day we're going to know what this is. And it's going to seem so obvious,
Yeah.
But, it's like, yeah, it's all wild. I just know that the more these kind of things happen, the more I'm like, I'm on the right track because
totally,
and
man.
that these people, we're resonating on the same frequency or it's life telling you that like, this person who is obviously, you meet people to help yourself. You meet people and you go through things to work things out, in yourself. And like, or this person that I meet, or this person I'm talking to, or this person I'm collaborating with, or this thing that's happening is trying to show you something about yourself. And it's trying to present you with like a growth opportunity of some sort.
Totally.
So you're always just like, fuck, I'm just grateful for all of it. I'm grateful for the bad stuff. I'm grateful for the good stuff. I'm just, I'm fucking stoked.
The synchronicity of life is real. Like
it really is.
The not separate thing. I've got a friend, and I've had my own like. Have you had any like psychedelic experiences of connecting on another plane?
Oh yeah,
like I have, and I think it changed me. Like I went back to being 7 years old, building the sandcastle, and then I went into the future, and all my dreams had come true. So that as an experience was pretty beneficial, and did.
Were you on mushrooms?
Yeah, no, yeah. Let's not get into this. I don't want to go too hard.
All right, no, but I mean, yeah, I've had some profound. I'm a huge fan of psychedelics.
Yeah,
I'm a profound fan of like really getting the fuck out there, with someone that you're close to.
Totally.
And you will or even by yourself, and you will sometimes when you need it, when you really need to, it will really resort you and sort shit out, and like it'll show you things that you're like, you can't. I've had times where I couldn't tell how old I was. I've had times where different. I thought I was, like you said, I thought I was 5 or 15 or 25, and I couldn't tell how old I was. I had times where I forgot my own name, and it didn't even make sense to me. I've had times where like my ego shattered completely and I was just the raw thing. And I've had other times where I was fused, me and another person that I was with, like became something that was beyond our bodies, like we become some other thing. And like, you can really feel someone's energy on a level that where it's almost psychic. You're having a psychic, and it sounds crazy to people who've never done it, but where you touch another person and you can feel everything through them, almost like they're not their memories in like a literal way, but their whole thing is like, you're like, holy fuck, like it's like, I don't know, like I there's something going on here that we obviously have. We're seeing life in the terms of the parameters that we're allowed to see it through. Yeah. But that's not actually what's happening. There's something else. There's something underneath of it happening, and it's really important to get, once you've been there, it's really important to get back in touch with it every now and then. So
and I don't know whether it was stifled by, I don't know whether it was organized religion or some sort of proto-capitalism or something that just went, we have to have linear time, you have to have ego and separateness,
you can't control people if they become, if people are able to understand that, making an enemy out of your brother or not creating social hierarchies and things like that. If people are liberated to the fully extent that psychedelics can actually liberate people to, they won't fall prey to those kinds of things anymore. And you can't divide them, and you can conquer them, you can't control them. So what do? They make psychedelics like a class A substance, and then they create therapy. Therapy didn't really exist until psychedelics were illegal, pretty much. Yeah. So
that's really interesting.
Obviously. And you can, I'm sure you can go you can get about 50 therapy sessions further in one heavy trip, than you could start talking to someone forever, because it's like, I find the combo to be really beneficial, because then you get, you can get you can learn what you're dealing with by reading about it or talking about it, and you can talk to someone else about it and bounce shit off of people, but you can really go profoundly internal in a
Yeah.
way that you cannot, like you can strip yourself of your ego and what you like, all of that shit, and become connected to like the real source thing if you through psychedelics.
Yeah, and it's like these new neural connections. My friend of mine calls it life admin when going on his own like solo adventures into other realms, like, and it is kind of, and can you channel this? How would this affect your creative process?
Well, I
Like
think
going to
once
these
you break
places?
down those doors, and once you get, they never really are quite fully back,
Yeah.
And I feel like once you've felt a certain way and you see a certain thing, those doors are easier, those roads are easier to walk down.
Mm.
It just changed. And I think the whole notion of seeing things differently, that's what creativity is, right? So
Yeah,
like
dude.
creativity isn't practicing an instrument and getting good at guitar, getting good at things. Creativity is the ability to see something differently, or in an abstract way than, or not thinking about the rules of creation. It's
Yeah.
like it's putting the strings on your guitar on backwards, or it's tuning them to different tunings intentionally to see what you're going to come up with. It's about like breaking rules and not thinking in terms of constructs, and breaking down the way that you view reality
Yeah.
is a profound example of like of getting out of constructs,
Yeah.
of how you look at things. And so that changes the way you create, because you now know that there's no limit to anything. Like you
Yeah.
can do there's no reason that this instrument has to be played this way just because that's how someone told you. There's
Yeah.
no reason why you can't sing this kind of way over this kind of thing. Or it's like, there's no reason who says that you're supposed to fucking, do this with this instrument? Maybe I want to do this,
Yeah.
maybe I want to fucking hit the drum this way, or maybe I want to, do this other, plug this thing in backwards. It's like you could just fucking, it just changes. Like I said, the more you can get out of calcifying, that's what it
Yeah.
really does. That's really what it does. The more you can stop yourself from calcifying,
Yeah, dude.
and any way possible, whether it's forcing yourself to take a trip. That's what it is. It's like getting on a plane and going somewhere, or driving somewhere. It's like that for your mind, and
Yeah.
so you have to force yourself to take trips, to make yourself uncomfortable, to keep yourself from calcifying. And when you do that, it reinforces to your brain that calcification is bad, and that changing the way that you view things is good, and that bleeds into your creativity, and it bleeds into the way that you create and the way that your creative brain thinks. And it's like, if you ask someone to take a picture, of like a thing, it's like most people will take the fucking most basic. They'll stand like the certain feet apart, and they'll take the same exact picture. And if you Google that thing, there's going to be 9 million fucking pictures that all look exactly the same. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? But I don't want to see that. I want you to get like fucking super close to it and take some weird picture that fucking doesn't even look like the thing you're taking a picture of, because that tells me about you. It doesn't tell me about the thing. It tells me about you. And that's the value in creativity, is to tell, is expression of you,
Yeah.
not taking the picture of the thing, or like playing the guitar. You're not playing the guitar. The guitar is a tool for you to use to get the essence of you out. So it's like, when anything you can do to break those walls down constantly, like, is a good thing. And obviously, psychedelic drugs can help you. Can help you do
Yeah,
that.
and it's almost like, saying like being connected, but when it's you, it's like it's not the ego, it's like this little prism that you look through into the world. Like
It's
the
crazy. It's
prism
hard.
of it. Yeah.
It's hard for you to it's hard to explain. It's really tough to explain, but to people, but you obviously get it,
Yeah,
so
it's really
it's
interesting, and it's
fucking,
kind of
you go
changed my
into a
life.
oh dude, you go
Yeah.
into a place where there's no time. I've seen clocks go backwards. I've seen, like, I've you can stretch 1 minute into like fucking what feels like 5 hours.
Yeah,
There's like
totally.
5 hours that go by in 1 minute. There's things like, it just fucks with everything, like your whole your whole everything that reality is, will be different for you.
Yeah.
Like if you go to a certain place, and if you have shit that you really need to iron out in your own ego, and your ego is taking too much of a role in your life, it'll blow that shit right the fuck apart.
Totally.
Like, in a way that, anytime that someone says they've had a bad trip, it's like, well, no, your ego was just too big, and you fucking, it required some fucking breaking up.
Well, it wouldn't surrender.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you freaked out. You tried to hold on.
Yeah.
You tried to hold on to Greg Puciato, the person that pays, the electric bill, like, and fucking makes songs and shit. And you're like, oh fuck, I'm too attached to this guy. And
Yeah.
suddenly you're not, and you're just a piece of this. It's like, I imagine like you're a bubble. Like if you're a bubble in a river and you start to convince yourself that you're the bubble, it's like, no, dude, you're the river.
Yeah, totally. That whole concept, like you're the water, is pretty huge. Like,
And
well,
it's nuts, and it's right in front of your face when you get to a certain point, and then it's like, oh fuck, like
well, can
you're
it be transcendent? Like, I noticed something weird. I don't know whether it's like a thing of yours or whatever, but like, for example, like the difference between what you as a vocalist has done and how the kind of you've created kind of space between you and the listener. Like, I almost feel
yeah,
like Dillinger was so like pushing forward and like into people's space, and then you look at something like the Black Queen, or even some of this stuff with Killer Be Killed, and it's like you're creating space and inviting people closer to you, like rather
right.
than is that a conscious thing, and does that kind of connect to this concept of connection that you felt in these other places, or is it just a weird thing that I saw and it's not real?
No, I think that yeah, the Dillinger Escape Plan, a lot of that was about like get the fuck away from me, and a lot about it was like just trying to like just invade space and like push outwardly, and like yeah, this is like a lot of stuff since then has been about vulnerability and about I communicate artistically primarily, so I don't have like I'm not really close with a lot of people,
Yeah.
and I'm not really vulnerable with a lot of people in my life, and most of that need for me gets channeled artistically,
Yeah.
and so I'm very vulnerable artistically, and I'm very raw artistically, but I'm very guarded in the rest of my life, and there's only a handful of people that I end up, and honestly, even those people I'm not as vulnerable with as I am artistically at this point, and that's making my art better, and it's but it's obviously also the flip side to that is, again, I'm wary of that becoming some crutch to where I'm unable to, I don't fulfill that personal need because I'm using art to fill it, and because I have, basically a one-sided relationship with my work and audience, and like they can only, I fulfill that need in a different way, and then I'm, like I said, I'm not that close with a lot of people, so
Yeah.
but it doesn't matter to me right now. I don't care because I'm so amped on this artistic journey that
Yeah.
I don't really care, and if it ever gets to the point where I do feel like it's taking up too much room in my life, then I will then that'll be as much of an alarm to me as the Dillinger thing was. I
Yeah.
trust that I know how to recognize it now, but right now I feel great. But yeah, you definitely nailed it. Like, I spent so much time like pushing, and I feel like now, like, I'm definitely a little bit more inward than I
Yeah.
was.
And that's really interesting because it does kind of invite the listener closer. Do you really think it's a one-sided relationship? I don't really feel that Dillinger, like for example, or any of these things would feel like, I feel like they are connecting the other way. Like, would they
Well, I
not be
mean, when you
pushing
see
towards you?
people,
Yeah.
well, when you play
In the
shows,
moment?
that's
Yeah.
then you can touch people and you can see people and you can, I feel like, it's not one-sided completely, but I mean, as far as the actual creative process
Oh,
goes,
that's a good point.
like, that's a one-sided discussion. It's like, you're digging into yourself, you're making something out of it, and then you're leaving it, and you're putting a parameter around it and a boundary around it, and you're saying that this is this thing. But then people can't talk to you any further through that.
Yeah.
Like they wait. You have to wait until I get like make something else out of this. There's no conversation.
Yeah.
I hope that, you can hope that it finds people and that they relate to it,
Yeah.
and that that it allows them to echo something that's within them off
Mm.
of you in some way, that it pulls something out of them or they can relate to it. But like, it's still not a real, it's a relationship where there's a bounds to how close that
Yeah,
that
dude.
like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a
Yeah.
boundary
Well,
to it.
it's
Like,
not a
and
level of intimacy you can have in the real world, but I think,
right, right, right,
and
right.
it's like, and I think when you do have these deep relationships creatively, and I know I've been at times like more emotionally involved in what I'm doing creatively than I have been in the real world, which can be detrimental, but on some level, a lot of people have pretty fucking shallow relationships with the people in their life, and maybe it's better to have fewer ones that go a bit deeper than it is to
Yeah.
have these sort of peripheral, like
Well, I
massive,
find to
yeah.
me that the relationships in my life that are close are usually also, I have some sort of close creative relationship with
Yeah.
those people too, and we're fused in some way creatively too, and that allows me to, because they do see me at my rawest and my most intimate, like if I'm
Yeah.
working on something. So then by nature, I'm closer to those people, in
Yeah.
general. Um, so yeah, it's outside of that, like I don't, but yeah, like art and creativity is kind of the genesis of all of it for me. Like
Yeah.
there's like I don't, yeah, and I can't I can't imagine it not being that way for a while, I
And
guess,
it's
or ever. It's fine. This is what I am. Like at some point, you're like, oh, this is what I am, and this is how I relate to the world, and this is how I relate to myself and to my emotions, and that's what separates someone from being an artist versus being like a craftsman.
yeah.
Because you're a craftsman, you're just kind of like making the thing that you're a fan of, or you got good at doing it, so you know how to do it, and like you keep doing it. But I feel like I'm just like this kind of like antenna, this like raw nerve, and
Yeah.
I just can't. That's just how I deal with that.
I'm curious, like your relationship with like Ben, because
Also, your
he's
art
such a
can't hurt
drummer.
you.
He's
Your
like,
art can't hurt you.
I feel like he's like a weird little live wire for drums. Like there's huge emotional resonance in drums, and maybe people outside that don't see that. How do you see like the role of rhythm compared like in connection with like what you're doing?
Well, I'm very rhythmic as a person. Like I'm
Yeah.
really rhythmic oriented. I'm very like drummer oriented, and that only got more. I was always that way, like growing up,
Yeah.
when I was a little kid. I don't remember this at all, but before I had a guitar, I started playing guitar at 9. I didn't learn this until later, but my mom told me when I was like 3 or 4 that I had like this little drum set that I was obsessed with, that I just played all the time, like some little
Yeah.
Fisher Price drum set. But I've always been, and it might be from growing up in Baltimore, which is like a really heavy, urban element. Like there's a
Yeah.
lot of like, African American culture, and really a lot more of a rhythmic element to that music than a lot of other forms. So I feel like maybe growing up, like I just had, I was just around. I don't really know, but I've always related to rhythm. And then being in Dillinger for so long, it's like that band is primarily rhythmic based.
Totally.
Like even the guitar playing, it's not like there's times where there's melodic guitar elements, but for the most part, like even the guitar playing is mostly rhythmic. Obviously, the drums, are all like like you can a lot of the things that you would consider a riff is a rhythm
Yeah.
in that band. So like I became kind of fused to rhythm in a lot of ways. So I'm very heavy handedly kind of tied to that element as a songwriter, and the people when I'm usually in bands, like I feel like a particular fusion with whatever the rhythmic element
Yeah.
is.
And how does it
Yeah.
work with the songwriting? Like say with a Ben Koller or whatever, how do you do the birthing? What's the labor like?
I mean, there's some times where you have like a really clear idea in your head, like as a songwriter, of
Yeah.
what you want the drums to be like on a part that you've written. Like
Yeah.
for example, like on the Kill to Be Killed record, From a Crowded Wound
That's
was
my favorite.
well, that was my song. So I wrote that song front to back, like
Oh
every
dude,
piece of
that's
it,
my favorite. It's got so much
all of.
groove.
Well, that song I was gonna put on the solo. I was thinking about putting it on the solo record. Like
Yeah.
that song is for musically and lyrically, even the parts that Max and Troy are singing. I wrote all of it. I wrote their patterns, their melodies. I wrote the drum pattern, like everything. That song is like my baby. So
It's
on something
sick,
like
dude.
that, like I kind of hummed. I kind of like told, I said to Ben, like this is what I want the drum beat to be, and then I'm more heavy-handed about it because I have a vision in my head of what I absolutely want that to be.
Yeah.
And then then you give him liberty with it along the way, and he but you're kind of more, you're in like a director role in
Yeah.
this. But then most other things, it's like you kind of keep things loose enough because you trust the person. Like to me, it's like don't work with someone unless you're going to trust that they can bring something to the table that you're not going to think of. And that's a
Totally.
lot of the joy of collaborating, is not heavy handing everything, and not, like I said, sometimes you do have a vision. Like that song was very important to me, and that song was very, very personal for me and near and dear to me from like a musical perspective and a lyrical perspective. So I knew exactly what I wanted from it. But there's other times when you're just like, I'm gonna give you this riff and just do whatever you're thinking. And a lot of times a riff, drummers in particular, as much as drummers to me are like singers, they're the closest things to singers, because
Interesting.
they can put something to a piece of music that'll completely change the way you hear that piece of music, right? So like if you have a riff, or you have a musical idea, or someone else has a musical idea, what I put down over that vocally can completely change that riff. They might have
Yeah.
heard one type of vocal in their head, and I do something completely different, and it fucking completely flips it. And drums are that way too. So if you give someone a drum beat or a riff, and in your head you already got an idea. If you don't tell them what you're hearing, and they do something completely different, it can fucking throw your whole. I mean, it changes everything. And a lot of times, and if you have someone that you trust, that you are excited to work with, you're excited for that to happen. You're not bummed
Yeah.
that it's not what you're hearing in your head. You're excited because, and that to me, it's like that's the value of collaborating. Like, is that you're going to go down an avenue. And Weinman, you know, he and I did that a lot. He and I were got to the point where we were very much like that. And there were plenty of times where he would send me stuff that I was like, fuck, this isn't what I would have done at this point in the song, but I guess I'm going to fucking just write vocals to it anyway. And then it ended up being killer. Or there's times where I sent him stuff that on first pass, he would, you know, later tell me, like, when I heard that, I was like, I don't know about this, man. And then like a couple days later, he was like, that's fucking sick. You know, so like but like you need to surround yourself with people that will do that. And like for me, drums, like I said, as a, you know, especially in a band like Killer Be Killed, where like I'm writing, you know, a lot of the music too, like, you know, it's exciting. Like drums are like a singer. It's like,
totally.
For me, it's like, I don't know what Troy's going to come up with vocally, and that's exciting. I don't know what Max is going to do. You know, he's going to have a vocal pattern that I wouldn't have had, and that's exciting. But like, it's equally exciting to be like, you know, the drumming can fucking change, and the drumming will change everything after it too. So the drumming changes the way you write your vocal phrasing. It changes your melody. It changes like, you know, everything. I cue off of drums as a singer. I cue off of vocal, like for phrasing. I cue off of drums, you know, so much after being in a band that for 18 years was largely atonal a lot of times. You know what I mean? Where you're pretty much just cueing off the rhythm. Like I cue off of drums a lot. So, you know, for Ben and I, like, you know, bringing him into the picture profoundly you changed the album, and he and I are close, like, you know, not you know outside of musically too, and like I think that's why too, you know, because of the nature of that relationship. And I've been like that with all drummers. Like I was close with Chris Penny, I'm close with Billy, close with Gil. You know, I've been, you know, Hornbrook, who played on my record, I've been close with him for 23 years. So I tend to gravitate a lot towards drummers, I think, because I feel creatively really close to rhythm.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah. So we're covering some ground here.
We're covering some ground. I think we've covered some ground.
It's good, you know.
Like
don't do these things if you're not gonna fucking dive deep, you know.
Well, what's the point? Like that's how I feel. This is how I connect with people. Like this is a part of my emotional connection with the world.
Yeah, I've been more into doing these kind of things too, like podcasts lately, because it's like you do these other interviews, and it's like you fucking get taken out of context, or someone uses like 5 parts of the sentence that you said, and they don't, and then you see it reprinted, and you're like, God damn it, I didn't even fucking say that thing, you know, like fucking.
Well, this whole tabloid attitude to like even to gross. Music, and it's like I've had conversations. I had a conversation with the big editor of a music website, and I had made a really long form thing, and I'm like, well, my long form stuff actually performs really well, and he's like, nah, no one wants to read long stuff. No one wants to listen to long stuff.
Bullshit.
It gives me such a shit. It's like.
It's not true. It's actually not true. Like people aren't as dumb. People have just been dumbed down, and it's happening across the board. And if you look at mainstream, like look at like a fucking if you look at like a fucking talk show now compared to a talk show 30 years ago, it's not even in the realm. It's a joke. It's embarrassing. Like if you look at Jimmy Fallon and Jimmy Kimmel, they're embarrassing.
They are
compared
embarrassing.
Compared to like a fucking, you know, even like a Letterman who was last generation.
And Johnny Carson
like
as well.
If you look at Johnny Carson, or if you look at fucking Dick Cavett.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If you look at Dick Cavett, or like there's people, you know, look at Carol Burnett. There's like, I don't know, there's people like fucking, like, you know, late night, and like the way the interviews used to run. It wasn't just like you get a guy on there and then you interrupt him after every sentence and make a joke out of it, or try to see what the grossest food he'll eat is, or some other dumb shit. It's like, let the dude talk about his process, and talk about what makes him tick, and ask him some serious questions, and don't treat the audience like they're fucking stupid. And, you know, it's like now it's, you know, people have just been dumbed down, but they're hungry. They know that people don't want to be treated that way inside. No. Even if they think all they want to eat is candy and M&Ms, they don't. They want to eat real nourishing food.
Yes.
You know, even if they think that they're not. They're addicted to sugar, and they're addicted to headlines, and they're addicted to gossip, and they're addicted to fucking transient, like really fucking easily digestible, quick entertainment, and fucking, you know, TikToks and fucking, you know, like Instagrams and fast moving snippets of things. But
Dopamine.
it's not fulfilling them internally, and they know that inside. So if you start nourishing them, they're going to wake up and be like, oh shit, I'm capable of more than this. I'm capable of more than being treated like I'm a fucking idiot. And then they'll start to feel insulted and resent the people that still are treating them like an idiot. And
Yeah.
that's, but you have to make a decision ethically on what side you're going to be on, what team you're going to play for. It's like, am I going to fucking try to fucking get the most clicks or be as big as I can be, or am I going to dumb my songs down to try to deliberately hit the most people, or am I going to fucking toe the line and make sure that art and culture doesn't become entertainment?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And there's a big
it's so
fucking
true.
difference.
And it's like, yeah, like it's funny, like my dude and stuff doesn't have the internet at home and doesn't really consume visual media. Like he's a bit insane about reading books and all that stuff, but as a result has this weird depth that most people don't have. Like, and in terms of interviews, like Johnny Carson and Richard Pryor, like if you watch those are like, they're a masterclass. They're a masterclass. Yeah. And he lets him riff a bit. He like steers and shit, but he never like inhibits the process or the experience or anything that.
The only person doing it on a mainstream level now still is Letterman on the Netflix show that he has. He's at least doing like a long form, like what's that show called? It's like can't remember what it's called. Like My Next Guest Is or whatever. Yeah, and it's cool. Like it's I feel like there's a lot more to offer when you give someone like a long form or like some kind of big podcast thing. It's like regardless of what you think of him. Like I think Rogan has kind of like woken people up to the idea of people being able to carry on long form conversations and not be reduced to just fucking snippets or fucking games or whatever they do on late night TV.
He revolutionized it. Like you can't deny Rogan's impact in terms of regardless of whether and it's like I'd probably say he's stronger in the like scientific realm where he's really, really humble and lets people just completely riff rather than music. Like I'd say I think he's stronger in that area.
I agree.
In it like hugely, and it's like and so respect to however you interact with it and whatever your thing to bring to it is. But
there's a bunch of people that are into UFC that have now been exposed to theoretical physics.
And that's I think
that's really
one of his
important.
biggest contributions is going down the scientific path, and I think he's done some really incredible work in that area, and that. And that is a part of educating people. And I love like what you're saying, like people are addicted to candy, but they really do need nourishing food. And I think he's educated a lot of people from that world. I mean, would you say, and I think this kind of music is interesting because most people who make it probably have the broadest spectrum of input of anyone I know. Like anyone outside this world doesn't quite get that it's a wider bandwidth rather than a narrow one. I think that the implication for people who are outside of what you define as heavy music or, experimental electronic music or anything like that.
Right.
Yeah. What do you think? Like do you reckon your bandwidth is broader? Like what do you consume?
Oh, I do think that like because you're not thinking in typical structures, like even on a song structure basis, like you're able to move in different, you can really, let a song be 9 minutes long, 10 minutes long, or you could be, make a 30-minute album, or a 60-minute album, and you're not thinking in terms of like digestibility in the way that like some other, it's like being on, making art house films instead of trying to make Transformers 4. Like you're I think for me, it's like when I was a kid, it's like you're coming from being into this music at an early age is, I feel like much more stimulating because there's a lot less rules, and like, there's some, we're in the way that now, like, I feel I look at like, you look at like experimental electronic music, or you look at jazz, or you look at, classical or things where there's a lot less form rigidity that, doesn't exist in the pop world or the mainstream world. And it does, I think, there's a lot, like, again, it's like there's too many people are really viewing the world in general, like to bring it back to what we were saying before, they view the world in general in these really simplistic, easy to digest parameters. And it's like, are you what you got to declare a religion, you have to declare what type of relationship you have to declare whether you're what sexuality you are, you have to declare your political party, you have to, this is the way a song sounds, it's got to have a verse, it's got to have a chorus, it's going to happen this time, you have to define yourself by it. And when anything goes out of bounds, you start, like, people, it's beyond their reach immediately. Like that's like, they can't, you can see the drop off in terms of how many people can engage in something by how abstract it is. Like when it's presented to them, like the more simplistic you make something, the bigger it will be, like in terms of commercial. It might, that doesn't mean it's going to have the same lasting impact, but it's like, look, Transformers 4 for example, made $1.1 billion,
Jesus
right, in the
Christ.
box office. 1.1 billion. Lost in Translation made like 100 million. Like, I mean, what movie would you rather be? What movie would you have rather made? What movie has more lasting impact? You know, so like you have to get away, you have to break away from the quantification of things and defining yourself through quantification and parameters. And like, so I always tell bands and shit that like, don't worry about like, you know, don't worry about rules. Don't worry about your social media numbers. Don't worry about like branding. Don't worry about any of that shit. It means nothing. You know, just fucking go, just work, fall in love with like the discovery process and like figuring out your voice and, you
Yeah.
know, and getting away from rules and just letting yourself go where you want to, where you need to go, letting each song go where it needs to go. Let your record go where it needs to go. Let your career go where it needs to go. Like just fucking get out of the way
Yeah.
and like, you know, get rid of these rules and the fucking, you know, you don't, there aren't any warning strips on the sides of the road except for the ones that you imagine in your head, you know, and like, it's really, I know I'm getting far away from your question about like
Who
whether or
cares?
not metal has boundaries or or whether or not like, you know, I don't know, but like,
I
I
don't
do
need to
think in
stay in my
general,
question.
that's a lot of the problem overall is people needing things to be neat and tidy and defined and like you know that's half our problem over here right now
Yeah.
is that like you know you're either extreme left or you're extreme right and
Oh,
there's
it's
no middle
so
and you can't have
dumb.
a conversation. It's just people at far ends of the fence yelling at each other. It's just
Oh
like and it's like
man.
Jesus Christ, dude. But that's a result of the dumbing down in general into this, not just you know and like I said, if you do it in one area, then suddenly you're more prone to doing it in another area and like you know overall people have just been corralled into these little dumb boxes and ways of thinking and very small parameters, and they don't know who they are outside of it. So they feel like they have to, for a sense of self, they have to declare allegiance to some form. You know,
Yeah.
I'm going to declare allegiance to a religion, or I'm going to declare allegiance to a certain political party or to a way of living, or my relationship has to have a name on
Yeah.
it. You know, it's like, you know, and if you don't have those things, you don't know who you are. And that's fucking really destructive. You know, it's
And
really destructive. And
maybe it's good
we're
to
at
not know who you are. Maybe it's good
we're
to like be
right.
fluid. And it's like that's almost
Well,
like
you're not
connecting
the
back to
person
the
that you were
superconscious thing.
yesterday.
Yeah.
I've been saying that a lot. You're not the person you were yesterday. You're the person you are today, and you're the person you're going to be tomorrow. And if you tell yourself, it's like the calcification thing. If you tell yourself, like when you were a kid, you didn't know fucking shit all about yourself. You didn't know what you were going to be. You didn't
Yeah.
know what you were into, and you were so excited to find all that out, and you're so excited to figure all that out, and to get into what you're going to get into. And then at some point in time, you start to hedge your bets, and you're like, well, you know, I think that I'm this thing and
Yeah.
I can't do anything outside of that. And it's like, no, no, no. You could, if you're still into that, you can be that, but you can also be this and that and expand the boundaries and get more and discover yourself. Just keep discovering yourself and allowing yourself to be a living thing, not a fucking dead thing that you're dragging around, but a living thing up until the time that you fucking die. You know, you can be creating yourself. And that's, you know, that was the name of my record references, but like you can be creating your thing up, you know, you should be in a creation process. You should be in a birth process up until the time that you're dead.
Yeah.
You know, like you shouldn't ever
Whoa. That's
calcify,
awesome.
you
That's an
know?
awesome
Like
thought, like to kind of process and like digest and stuff. Like that's an amazing philosophy. It's funny. I don't know why this makes me think of it, but Genesis P-Orage from Throbbing Gristle. I spoke to them and they. Oh no, I didn't speak to them. I listened to a really good podcast. I was close. It felt like it was. Yeah, it's she. Shit. Fuck. Felt like. Oh, gotta get this right. I felt like they were speaking to me and that had a really interesting perspective on gender, where
okay.
they were like being limited by that whole movement when they were like, I don't even want to exist. I don't want to be a boy or a girl, or I don't want to be that. I want to make my own thing. I want to create a completely original thing. And there was getting all this pushback from not wanting to be defined in this thing. And it's just like, it's
like I said, it's like when you're talking about, you know, the psychedelic thing, it's like, do you really think that our essence, do you really think that fucking, you know, when you're, whatever the soul and when the energy poured into this, you know, form, do you think that like at the root of it, you're a fucking boy or a girl? You know what I mean? Do you really think that fucking like at our source energy, like when you boil everything down to the source, that we're split up into male and female?
Yeah.
You know, like that's just our way that we manage to reproduce.
Exactly.
But do you think that our energy is that? Do you think that you can't like boil? Do you think you can't be in love with like someone that's like your best friend just because it's like you're not going to reproduce with them? Or do you think you can't be in love with like this other being that you meet just because they have certain,
Yeah,
genitalia that they
parts.
didn't ask for or something like that, or certain like sexual preferences. Like you think you can't boil all that away into like your fucking the actual essence, which is beneath all of that.
Yeah.
Then you haven't tripped hard enough or something. But like fucking as well as I
Yeah.
do, because that like when you boil all that away, that's all just like that's just a way that we're like relating and connecting each other on like the physical plane. But like
Yeah.
underneath of all that, we're energies and consciousnesses and fucking and this soul essence that definitely is not any gender and is not a political party and is not a fucking a musician or a fucking plumber,
Yeah.
or a writer or anything, like it goes beyond all of that. And these are just the things that we've been given in this cut thing to try to relate to one another. So, yeah. So that whole concept of like, the whole like idea that people fight over this kind of stuff is fucking bananas to me. I'm like, you
It's
guys, it's like fighting over something completely pointless. You're fighting over the idea. It's like it's like race too. It's like you're fighting. You really think that fucking, the energy that's in you is fucking black or Asian or white or any, it's like you're at what, like what kind of fucking, like, man, it's like you're really living on the absolute surface level at that point.
it's
Like,
so
and you're
just
wasting your time here.
oh
Like you're
man.
wasting your life. Like you're wasting your life. You're existing on that surface plane. Like you're wasting your time. Like we're not here to be on that level. We're here to fucking try to, fucking
Evolve.
transcend that. We're here to
Yeah.
transcend that and like, and evolve and get away from, and kind of figure out the puzzle of what is beneath that. We're not just fucking trying to live on that plane, man. It's crazy to realize how many people make it all the way to the end of their lives, like wasting life. They
Well,
wasted this whole thing.
yeah, and it's just like I know it's like it's so comforting and it's like a sugar rush or a headline or whatever, this scapegoating, and it's like I don't believe in left and right, I believe in forward. And I think when
Right.
people are looking sideways all the time, they're also not looking up to where the real problems are. And all these conspiracy theorists, I'm like, the real, like, if you want to really pull the fabric back, it's so much worse and more complicated than anything you will ever understand. Like
Of
it
course,
just
yeah.
will, like it's so much darker and it's going to be so much more complex, and you may probably won't ever get access to that because it's buried so deep. And it's just the scapegoating and just these like blue heeler dogs like circling around these like sheep things that make everyone feel comfortable because the dog knows which way they're going.
Right.
And it's just
Well,
like,
everyone's going to
dude.
see it. Everyone's going to see it at their moment of death,
Yeah.
everyone's going to see everything, like, and it's going to fucking be a trip. The more you're unprepared for it, the more it's going to be like, oh my God, I wasted my life, when you're
Yeah.
5 seconds away from dying and you suddenly, have the fucking trip to end all trips
Yeah.
and fucking, and know all those realizations hit you at one time to prepare you for death. It's gonna, you're gonna realize that you wasted all this time. You wasted all this time living on the surface and creating all these false divisions and looking around you and shouting at all the other surface level things that you believe are the cause of your problems. You're gonna, all these kind of people are
Comforting.
gonna, yeah.
And
Like
and the comfort's the ultimate
trip.
discomfort. Like you gotta
Imagine
say
the
uncomfortable.
Dude, well, that's hell, right? That's
Yeah.
hell. So imagine the level of discomfort that's going to hit someone like Trump. Like imagine
man.
that last 5 seconds of his life are going to stretch on for an eternity. It's going to be like the most crushing realizations ever are going to hit him within a few seconds of fucking blinking out. So it's like,
He's like, for me, it's like the problem with him is not like, I mean, he's such a limited person, a limited narcissist,
well, it's all
and the product
ego.
of his father.
It's all,
Yeah,
yeah, it's all,
100%. But it's like
and
the
he's
problem
living
with him
full
is he's a
surface.
mirror.
Yeah.
He's a mirror of a really ugly part of society.
Right.
The only reason he
Exactly.
exists is because that magnification of that mirror is so broad and
100%.
so bright. And it's like, that's the problem. Those
Well, that's
people
what
who feel that reflected or want his life, who want to be born into privilege, who
Right.
want to have this easy ascension, failing to the top so magnificently. And I just,
Oh.
yeah, it's a really
Talk
interesting
about all the
character.
time. Like he's not the problem; he's a
No.
symptom of the problem, right? And now
100%.
he's this giant mirror who's reflecting all this back to those people, and it's validating them, and it's being instead of instead of embarrassing them, and that's what's horrifying. Is Instead of
Yes.
seeing him and feeling like, oh, like I'm embarrassed by this, like they are amped on it because it's giving them some sort of validation
It's
and being like,
amazing.
oh, well, I must be right in being an idiot, and I must be right in having these views, and because this guy has them and he's the president, so it's validating all these people and he's getting them all worked up. But in reality, that's someone that you should feel very embarrassed by, and you should feel like, man, like that dude is operating, excuse me, that dude is operating on the most simplistic, basic
Dude.
animal fucking plane imaginable,
Yes.
and like so oblivious and so, it's sad. Honestly, it's sad. It's sad. I mean, they're gonna study that guy forever to psychologically to figure out like what, obviously it's his father and there's some nature and some nurture and whatever the hell else turned him into this fucking narcissistic.
Yeah, it's got to be
sociopath.
that in so many ways.
But like it's it's a trip that I tell people all the time, he's a symptom of the problem. And if the problem didn't exist on a larger level ideologically, that someone like that would have just been laughed out of the village. You would have just been like, hey,
it's like
you would have corrected him at a young age and been like, hey, that guy's going to end up being a fucking problem or an idiot. We got to steer him away from turning into this monster. He would have been like laughed out of the village, but like the fact that he's been able to be put on this thing is, those people aren't going to go away and those ideologies aren't going to go away just because he's not going to be there anymore. No. They're still going to be there.
So it's alive.
They're still going to be there. There's a lot of people that have had them and, they've had them for generations. And, the other day I was like, I was tripping out a little bit and, I started thinking about the Confederacy and I started thinking about the Civil War and I was like, man, the Civil War, it only ended because, we won and then it didn't have a name. These people didn't have a name anymore, but they didn't, just because they didn't have a name anymore and they weren't allowed to be called the Confederacy, those ideologies didn't go away and those ways of thinking didn't go away. And the positions that they had in society and in their towns and in their communities, they just became ingrained. And it's only 4 or 5 generations ago for us. So like those things have been passed down for 4 or 5 years and without a form, without an ideology, and they've been there and growing, and now suddenly they have a form again, and it's called the fucking Republican Party, and it's just the Confederacy. The Civil War never ended, but it just ended physically, and now it's an ideological information stage of the same exact fucking battle. It just went away for like a couple hundred years, and now it's regained a new form, and we are in a civil war. We're just not, and it is connected to the first one, and we're just, not completely doing it physically yet, but we're on the fucking brink. And if it's only because we're not as separated neatly by territory as we were back then, where one was north and one was south. We do have coasts and little, pockets of, progression and progressive mentality peppered in throughout all of those states on the map. But if we weren't, and it was easily divisible by west or east or north or south, we would already either be at war or we'd have split into 2 countries, because those ideologies never went away. They just didn't have a form and they didn't have a guy validating them. And now they have a form. They've assumed the fucking, the vessel of the Republican Party, and they've got a fucking guy who they can be like, all right, here we are. I've been waiting for fucking years. We're waiting for fucking years to reassume our fucking position as fucking, gun-toting fucking right-wing racists. And fucking now we've got a guy who's fucking getting us all riled up and telling us that we haven't been wrong all this time. And it's like, man, that shit, like it needs to be rooted out on an ideological level so that someone like Trump can't fucking seem like someone that you're rooting for. It should, like I said, it should seem embarrassing. Like everyone in America should be embarrassed that this happened.
Yes.
It shouldn't be like, and if you've gone to other countries and you're and it's obviously lack of education and lack of culture causes this, and because you have to intercept these at a young age, because a young person is going to just repeat the ideology of his parents and his surroundings and his peers. It's very difficult for someone to break out of the thing that is around them, because they're going to get made fun of. They might get beaten up. They're going to get fucking, so if you're a kid who's naturally, would be a more sensitive person who would be inclined to kind of break the cycle, it's going to be very difficult for you too when you're just surrounded by it all the time, so these things just keep getting passed on and passed on and passed on. And the only way to enter, you're not going to change the guy's mind that's 50 years old or 60 years old or 40 years old or 30. You have to intercept these people, at a young age. I know I'm getting so off topic now, but this is, it's that's why, I kind of feel like this was for Generation Z and, whatever is happening after them, it's really good that they saw the train go off the tracks like this, because they now can maybe wake up, and it's not going to be X and, Generation Y. Like we had our, we thought shit was cool. You got lulled to sleep.
Dude,
we had all kinds of,
if we grew up in the
entertainment.
90s, it was the longest period of economic growth in like the last 100 years.
Yeah, we thought shit was cool.
It was
we had
so idealistic compared to now.
Well, that's why young people are fucking obsessed with the 90s now, because they're like, hey, wait a second. That was the last time that the dream was still alive.
Yes.
And then after that, we've just, we kind of got thrown off by 9/11, and then we had like just endless forms of entertainment and technological innovation that are kind of just like keeping us occupied. Like, oh my God, like smartphones, high-speed internet, fucking social media, all this shit just keeps coming. And then it's like, oh, you got a black guy president, gay people are getting married, weed's starting to be legal. This is pretty chill. Yeah. No, it's not. It's not chill at all. And like everyone just got fucking really lulled to sleep by the fucking entertainment and the illusion of progression, kind of that was in front of them. And now you can really see that there's serious fucking problems here, serious fucking problems. And that's why they're here. And, we've got fundamentalist religion tied into it too. And, everyone's too much of a fucking, not to fucking, everyone's too much of a coward to fucking call that what it is too on both sides. Is like you shouldn't be putting these fucking zealots in office, and you shouldn't even be talking about God and shit like that. And we shouldn't be fucking putting Supreme Court justices that have fucking fundamentalist religious beliefs. You shouldn't have those people fucking voting on abortion. We shouldn't be talking about abortion. No. We shouldn't be talking about race issues. We shouldn't be talking about healthcare. We should be talking about education. We shouldn't be fucking talking about these things. We're fucking trying to go to, I'm sorry to get worked up. We're trying to go to fucking Mars. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's 2020. Like if you would have taken a fucking crystal ball back to the 60s and you would have shown, like everyone in the 60s, 2020, they would have been like, what the fuck's the point? What's the point? Why am I even fucking doing all this? Why am I even trying to make all this happen? If you would have shown the fucking world who was trying to get rid of Hitler, if you would have shown fucking those people in the 40s, Trump in fucking 2020, you'd be like, what the fuck's the point? Yeah. Like, are you guys not going to learn anything? What are we fighting to save? Yeah. If you were to go back to the Civil War, you would have been like, what the fuck's the point? Like, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? We shouldn't be having conversations about whether or not global warming is real or climate change is real. We shouldn't even be having them. Like, if someone wants to fucking have that conversation, you're not allowed into this conversation anymore. You know what I mean? If you believe that abortion is a fucking, a religious issue, or you believe that it's some type of moral issue, like you're not allowed to be in this conversation. Like these aren't like, if you believe that public education is and healthcare and those kind of things are somehow something that we should still be fucking arguing about. So ridiculous. You shouldn't be allowed in, like we should be taught it's embarrassing, and everyone in this fucking country should be fucking embarrassed that we're having these kind of conversations.
It's hard to watch. Like it really is hard to watch, and it's like, and it goes back and like two things. First of all, there's no such thing as a pro-life movement. There's a pro-birth movement. As soon as that kid is born, fuck you is basically the attitude of those people. Like it's just absolutely ludicrous to say anything different. It's like there's nothing humanist about that movement, and it kind of goes back to what you were saying before about being calcified. These people are calcified. Their beliefs are calcified. They're no longer taking in information. Like no, and religion has
a lot to do with that too. And it's just like any other fundamentalist thing. It's like I tell you, the South and all of these people, these kind of people in the U.S., they're going to become, the Middle East to what the Middle East is to Europe. It's just going to be because it's all tied into fucking religious fundamentalism, and it's the same shit across the boards. It's fucking oppression of women, fucking weird racial fucking, like dividing people by race and fucking, that kind of shit, all this right-wing shit. And you're getting it down there too. You've got all this fucking weird right-wing shit. It's creeping up everywhere.
Well, the whole
this
world.
Weird nationalist right-wing fascist sentiment is creeping up no matter, I'm doing all this press right now, and no matter who I talk to, it's like the obvious ones are there. So you see the obvious ones, like fucking, places where people are revolting clearly, and like Belarus or fucking, and you see
Beijing as well,
or you see Beijing, or you see Homeboy.
Oh, sorry, Hong England. Kong. I just got that wrong.
Yeah.
Hong Kong.
With Brexit, you see Brexit, and you see fucking all that kind of shit, and that's the obvious shit. But like, no matter who I talk to, it's like every country, they're pretty much telling me that there's these kind of like really concerning, like nationalist, jingoist, fucking right wing things like creeping out of it. It's all this weird old world protectionism, this old world like fucking reluctance to be. It's like you're afraid that by like moving into like a fairer, like more humanist reality, that you're somehow going to lose what we were talking about before, to tie it into some other things. You're going to lose part of your identity, or that you're going to be wrong this whole time. You spent your life believing this, and now you're wrong. It turns out you're wrong. But like, and people can't get, it's calcifying. They can't get away from their ideas, and they can't fucking be, they don't want to know that their parents were wrong, and their grandparents were wrong, and their friends are wrong, and everyone around them is wrong. And it's like, fuck, man, you should want to know that shit. You should want to learn that shit. You should want to know. It's like, everyone's just got such a fucking moronic view. It's like, even watching right now, they're talking about like trying to cancel student debt, and like, for people that have just absurd amounts of student debt, and like the people that argue against it they're always the one that are like, well, I just got done paying off my student debt. Like, fucking, why should I have to pay? And it's like, dude, what if everyone said that? It's like, what if everyone said that every single time there was something that should be made better? It's like, yeah, dude. So like, if we come up with a cure for cancer, you're like, and no one's going to die anymore. What are you going to be like? Hey man, like my fucking family died of cancer. Why shouldn't these people die of cancer too? It's like, no, dude, like we're trying to you should be happy. It's like, that's just your lot in life, dude. It's like, the second you die, that someone's going to fucking figure out a fucking medical innovation that's going to make sure that no one else dies of that thing. You know what I mean? What, are you going to feel salty about it? You're going to feel sour that they didn't fucking do it beforehand?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, man. Everyone's so fucking selfish and so fucking like, just like, they don't want people to fucking, it's like the whole, yeah, dude, it fucking drives me nuts. It's driving me nuts. Like it's in our faces all the time right now too with this shit, like the whole like fucking.
Well, rugged individualism, which is kind of
rugged
like,
individualism.
yeah.
Yeah.
And we don't have the same thing. We don't have it here like that because we don't have that pride. We're a bunch of criminals. Like my great whatever came here because they stole a loaf of bread and a fucking coat. Like we don't have the same pride. Like we just don't. We're like, yeah.
This weird idea that individualism has something to do with like doing whatever the fuck you want. And it doesn't. Like freedom doesn't mean I can just go out and fucking mow someone down with a machine gun and be like, you know what? I fucking wanted to do that. It's like you don't get your freedom lines. The line of your fucking freedom ends the second you infringe upon someone else's shit. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that's why smoking indoors is illegal, dumbass.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? You
totally
can't just light up indoors because I don't want to fucking breathe it.
Yeah.
It's not your right, dude. Like you're not at that right. The second the reason why you can't drive 150 miles an hour down a fucking down a neighborhood street isn't because I'm trying to fucking keep you from fucking driving your fucking car 150 miles. It's so that you don't run a kid over and explode him on contact. You fucking idiot.
And it's this community thing, like the whole this anti-community sentiment and it's really interesting what the current situation has shown, and it's interesting what's happened in Australia because we're down to like nothing. It's like resolved here, and it's because
good for you guys.
Well, it's not. You know what? It's almost like you don't want to talk about it. Like it's just you're like, oh, I'm embarrassed.
No, your pain tolerance is we have a much lower pain tolerance for inconvenience. And we a lot of people in our country get all fucking they get all twisted up the second you tell them that they can't do something. You can't go to fucking. You're not going to be allowed to go to Starbucks. You're not going to be allowed to go to the thing, or I can't go to the thing with my friends. I can't go to the fucking restaurant I go to every Friday. And it's like, dude, fuck. What are you gonna die? You're gonna fucking. Is it going to kill you?
It's mind-blowing. And it's like, we barely copped it. The state below us had a 6-month lockdown, a 6-month locked in your house lockdown. And on another level where you're getting fined $500 for not wearing a mask. Like, and I don't know whether there's some level of that is too extreme. Like, I wouldn't have wanted to do it. I live on my own. I don't know whether I would have been able to cope with it in a psychological way, but it's like, I'm like really proud of them for taking that for the team. Like it's just it's unbelievable.
Well, the other thing that you see people that continuously vote in the opposite of what would be in their best interest. They cry about something, right? So these people that are like, how am I like we're not equipped like as to be able to fucking shut everything down, and that should be enough to let you know that we should be dealing, with things differently. It's like when you say like, oh, I can't just fucking let my business die, or I can't just not go to work because I won't have any money. And it's like, well, yeah, dude, that shouldn't be the case. You know what I mean?
No.
And that shows you that we're not equipped for this kind of thing.
You can print monopoly money, and that's the revelation, especially in this country. They've been printing money. I'm sure there's going to be impacts on it, but how can you possibly put capitalism above it? And one of the things that is the most punishing, and for you as an artist and for our entire community of music, I can't think of anything that makes me angrier than the way music has been treated during this period. Like it's some sort of peripheral thing that doesn't matter. Like you watch an entire universe of people, and it's not just the artists, it's the entire world of music has been treated like it's not important. And it's like, how exactly do you think any of us would have gotten through this without it?
No, and I've ranted about this to Andrew Hogue like recently, but it's true. Like we have treated now arts and culture in general for pretty much the last 40 years as basically like disposable entertainment.
Yeah.
And it's if you look throughout history, societies that are more advanced, like arts and entertainment are thriving, and they are prioritized, and they are given reverence, and in the societies that aren't, like the end stage Roman Empire, which is kind of where we're at now.
Yeah.
It's like all they care about is like money and the gladiators, like
Yeah.
the economy and the gladiators, and the military industrial complex and the gladiators, and fucking that's where we are here. It's like we care about the economy and we care about sports, but we're not, we've been basically taking music out of schools. We've been, dumbing down the presentation of it. Like anything, we let the recording industry fucking crumble. We didn't protect artists at all. We still haven't enacted, proper protections on royalty rates or any kind of mandates or, anything like that. We've allowed the abuse of artists at the hands of record labels and things where they're never going to own their masters. We've just had all these things like happening for for fucking years now, and now like all these places like or artists or club owners or promoters or people that are all connected to this industry, anyone in the touring industry, we're getting our asses handed to us harder than anyone. Like everyone other person that goes to work, they're gonna have their full picture of work back. Not even like a months, almost a year ahead, before we will. Like we're going to be the absolute last, not like second to last or third to last. We're going to be the absolute last industry to come all the way back. And it's going to take years to undo the damage right on the fucking heels of the other side, the recording side, already being completely fucked.
Yes.
And
but even before this.
Yeah, but even before this, it's just been fucking, there's been no protections and no fucking, respect shown towards it, and a complete deprioritization of it shown to pretty much everyone, that arts and culture and music and all that is kind of, like I said, it's a form of entertainment, and it's just frivolous, and it's not really something to prioritize. And it's just like, yeah, man, none of these conversations, these need to become mainstream conversations. And, bigger artists, people that are in the mainstream, that just keep on fucking playing the role and keep on just being like the dancing monkey when they're put on. They need to fucking start breaking the third wall, you know what I mean? And being like, hey, I know that you're going to ask me to fucking, eat this disgusting food, Jimmy Fallon, or I know that you're going to ask me this stupid question, but we need to talk about this. And people need to start bringing these conversations forward, so that people understand what's happening and don't, that they can, wake up to this reality.
And think,
it's hurting consumers too. It's not just like, oh, poor, because the most people are like, oh, poor you, can't fucking go on tour, can't be a rock star, or whatever. If you're a tech or anything, they go, oh, cool, can't go on tour. Wish I could get paid to go to fucking wherever too. And it's like, dude, like, like it's my job. This is what I do. So I've dedicated my whole life to. It's like no one, and I'm not asking dentist Bob or plumber Bob to just let their whole shit just get raped for fucking. And have to get a whole new job or some shit like people think that you should do. And it's like, or just tour more, or just, when the recording industry fell out, just tour more, And now that the touring is gone, people are like, well, just make more music. And it's like, dude, fucking the whole thing is so fucked. And, it's not going to be an overnight thing, but it's like the thing that will help is awareness and people having these conversations in front of people so that they're, kind of get people militant about it. And there's, little.
Hope the pendulum will swing back, and I am forever hopeful.
Well, I do think that in entertainment in general is going to become, and especially live entertainment. I think that we're going to have like a Roaring 20s type of thing happen.
Oh, dude, that's totally. I talk about this all the time, like a summer of love.
Yeah, well, it's going to last for a while. I think if you pull the pendulum all the way to the right, it's going to swing all the way left. Or if you squish a spring down and you let it go, it's going to jump. So I think that people from a consumer standpoint are going to be really hungry for live entertainment and for anything that involves going out in general. I think people are going to be really just, it's going to, we're going to be fucking spring break for the next 5 years,
totally.
After this is over. But
That's
on a consumer end, I think that people are going to be hungrier for more substance too, like on the actual, just like what's being released in, because we've been pretty much, this whole, on the heels of Trump, like, and on the, I think we've reached peak stupid in every other area as far as like, the Kardashians are kind of like the zenith of like just how dumb and vapid you can get. We've reached the peak. Like, I really don't think it's possible to get further into like just like the dumbest, like you're at the dumbest point. Every movie's been remade worse than it was before. There's been a reality show about everything. There's no fucking social media that can possibly get faster than TikTok and Instagram. Like, you've just been kind of dumbed to the fullest extent. You've had Trump in president for 4 years. Like, you've reached peak dumb. So I think that like I said before about people wanting, you don't just want candy. I do think that there is going to be some sort of Renaissance.
Yeah.
It's like a mixture of Renaissance time period with the Roaring Twenties is going to happen because of this. These two things, like because of us reaching this kind of like boiling point of vapidity and stupidity and repression and loss of depth in arts and culture and not just arts and culture but loss of depth conversationally, politically, all this stuff. I think there's going to be more. I think we're going to get more serious again, like how the 90s was entertaining but like it was more serious, and the 60s were entertaining but it was more serious, and I think there's just going to be more of a focus on on depth and awareness, not just fucking being entertained,
And that's beautiful. It's funny, I was talking to Shirley Manson, we're talking, because I just made a film about feminism and women in rock and all this stuff, and just trying to get a bit nuanced about it. And she's like, it'd be really great if more women didn't want to just be pretty entertainers. And it's not even their fault in some ways, but because they're kind of told that that's how you do it. And it's really hard to watch a whole generation of women. It seems like their greatest achievement is to be beautiful. And it's like, that's a really hard thing to watch. And a lot of this idolatry and spectator sport shit is just so about that. And I hope that we can switch. It's like all my heroes when I was growing up, none of them were traditionally beautiful on any level, but they like made a contribution in a real way. And I hope that we can, if we're going to idolize people, can we not idolize people who've made a contribution?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like,
totally.
can't we do that, in this grand world? Okay. So we have a theme. This was a solid talk. We got in there. We got in there.
We're gonna bore. People are gonna get so bored. They're gonna be like, all right, guys, wrap it up. Wrap it up.
I think like 90 minutes is a solid amount. It's like it's a decent whack of time. It's where it should be.
Like I said, if you're gonna do this, like that's everything we're talking. This is what we're talking about. To give people substance. Fuck content. You know what I mean? Like fuck content. This whole importance on like content. It's like you gotta keep making content. No, you don't. You have to make substance.
Yeah.
You have to give people substance.
Ooh, I like that.
You don't need to fucking give, keep them on the hook. It's like you gotta. That's all these people. You gotta engage your audience. You gotta make content. It's like all these people. It's so disgusting.
Such garbage.
People call themselves content creators. Like, I make content. It's like, cool, dude. Good for you. What's that worth?
Garbage.
I make substance, dude. What are you gonna make? Who cares if you make an invention every day that I don't care about? Did you make air conditioning? No, you didn't. Shut the fuck up. It's like, make something that has that value, that makes some substance. Like, I was, Jesse, one of the most profound things that Jesse, Draxler, my partner and Federal Prisoner, ever said. He said something to me about like, the difference between wanting to be heard versus having something to say, and wanting to be heard is completely pointless. It means nothing. You don't need to be heard. There's white noise everywhere.
It's the same thing.
Wanting to be seen, wanting to be heard. That's nothing. You need to have something to say, or just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
Like there's no or else you're detracting by way of just like flooding the world with white noise. It's like, don't make content, make substance.
Yeah. Okay, so we got a theme. On this show, of like a regular discussion, because it's kind of elicits different kinds of things, which is degrees of heaviness, like what qualifies as actual heavy music, what has weight for you. And one of the most interesting responses we've had is, I think it's
Crowbar.
Yeah, is Stevie Wonder.
Crowbar?
Stevie, I love this song. I mean, that is like throwing wood. I always think that what's that fucking song? It's like the opener to one of their biggest albums. It's like, it sounds
Planets
like
Collide.
Yeah, it's like pieces of wood being thrown on a fire, like on a fire and burned. Like
yeah. But the guy just chopped all those pieces of wood down himself.
Yes.
It was pouring down rain outside. He carried them all back to the hut. He's just a guy that's just done a lot of hard work. His hands look like the wood that he just chopped. He's just fucking, that's Crowbar for you.
His voice
just
is
hard
serrated.
Manual labor. Yeah,
his
voice is manual labor.
Yeah, his voice is
hard. It's just his voice is the sound of like tarring a roof. It's just like hard manual, fucking beats you down. You're like pouring some concrete. Yeah.
What would your voice be if it was like, to use that analogy?
I don't fucking know. That's not for me to say.
Fair play.
Anyhow, so wait, what were you gonna ask me? What's heavy?
Degrees of heaviness. Yeah. What has emotional weight for you? What kind of pulls it down? What's like a I don't know. What's it called? Like an abyss. Like what pulls you down? And not even in a bad way. Or lifts you up in a dark place. Maybe it's too simplistic. I don't know.
Yeah, I
think
I need a more specific thing. What's heavy? I mean, I think like what I was saying earlier is like the idea of like kind of like loss of like You know what's heavy to me? You know what always makes me like always gets me is like dedicating yourself to something and working really fucking hard and going through a lot of like loss because of the thing that you believe in.
Yeah.
That to me is heavy. And like whenever if I find myself, ever tearing up about something, like I always tear up. Like I've teared up randomly talking to someone recently. I teared up about like talking about like how much like music means to me and how much like this life that I've dedicated myself to means to me and how much behind the scenes like things that I have either lost or like fucking like did not like I like other things that I've missed on in life to in my pursuit of this.
Yeah.
And like when I see other people do that, like when I see other people like really kind of like devote themselves to something and just really block everything else out and go through tons of hardships, whether you know about them or not, or
Yeah.
just really give their all to something to like get to a certain point, it like breaks me a little bit because I am like, fuck man, like you like that's heavy, like that's
Yeah.
heavy, just fucking singularly devoting yourself to something to the degree where you are just willing to like absorb all kinds of pain and just go through all kinds of like ups and downs and just keep fucking going
Yeah.
forward. Even if it's like, and it's always presented to people in a really simplistic ways, and like movies where like some guy like underdog guy like makes it through all the shit and wins at the end or something like that. Like, but that shit is really heavy. That is a really heavy thing, and
Yeah.
people have just basically the idea of eating shit for what you believe in or eating shit for what you're dedicated to, and like really fucking like and sticking with it to me like always
Yeah.
kind of always gets me. That always
Well,
like chokes me up.
it's what makes us like beautiful as humans is like sacrifice and
Yeah.
and the opposite of seeking comfort. Like you should be uncomfortable. It should be
Yeah,
uncomfortable.
I
Like,
I
what's
agree,
the point? Like, what's the point if you're not seeking? Because you can't grow from a place of comfort. You're gonna calcify, which is
Yeah, that's
my
I,
new
I
word
don't
of the day.
relate to. Yeah, I don't relate to people that have, and their shit's never important anyway, and they never have anything to offer of substance. Like people that have had it too easy, or people that are just like silver spooned, and
Yeah.
that are like they can't tolerate. They have no threshold for discomfort. It's like those people don't really ever have anything to offer anyway. As they're the people that bail out when shit gets hard. They're not
Yeah.
there they're not devoted to it from a pure place. They're just trying to get what they can out of it and then get out of it.
Yeah.
The second the equation right in front of them isn't in their favor, whether it's in terms of finance or
Yeah.
or attention or anything, they bail out, and it's like that's
Yeah.
fine, get out of here, poser.
Those are all
Fuck
the
out.
like things I'm most proud of is stuff where I've been like, I don't give a shit about any of the trappings of consumer culture. I don't care like how long this is gonna take or how much is it gonna hurt or how much I'm gonna
Right.
feel like I suck throughout it. Like, and
Once
you
you
have to feel
dedicate
like you suck
yourself
sometimes.
Yeah, once you dedicate yourself to it and you know inside that this is what you are and you've made that decision, then you're kind of like that takes a lot of the pressure away in some ways because you're like, I am this thing and
Yeah.
I'm gonna do this thing and this is who I am. It's like when people ever asked me, like, there's times where people, been like, especially towards the end of Dillinger, there's people that were like, what are you gonna do? It's like, well, I'm gonna keep doing this. It's just gonna be called other stuff.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, like it's like or like how are you gonna fucking survive if this or if you don't do this or how are you gonna survive through this? And it's like, well, once you decide what you are, it kind of takes the pressure off of that. It's like
Yeah.
this is it. Like I'm committed to this and this is what I am, and I know that I'm not. I would be lying to myself if I tried to be something else. It's like I was born this way, and like the way that I process life and is through being an artist and through making art and through doing stuff like this, and like this is who I am, and I would be being false to myself to try to do something else. So it's like the only thing I can do is not disrespect that, like I was saying earlier. And it's
Yeah.
like I would fucking go. Or it's like talking about selling out. Like if someone said to me, "Hey, I'll give you $1 million to write songs that you don't believe in, and to make music that you don't believe in, and to fucking millions of dollars to fucking make your stuff more commercial that you don't want to be commercial, or to dumb it down and shit." Like I would rather go out and work a job if I had to. I would rather go out and do dumb manual, do manual
Yeah.
labor to preserve the authenticity of what I'm doing,
Yeah.
because if I don't, I'm fucking disrespecting myself, And so
Yeah.
it's like once you decide this is what you are and you're really committed to it and you know it deep in your heart that you're not going to deviate from that, and you're going to fucking whether it's a smooth, sometimes you're going to be going uphill, sometimes you're going to be going downhill, and like a lot of the times the biggest breakthroughs are going to happen after a really long period of going uphill
Yeah.
or doing something where you're not swimming with the tide or where it is really difficult for you. Those are going to be the things that end up leading to the most fruitful experiences and the most reward. And it's like once you dedicate yourself to that the responsibility is like you're kind of free in a
Yeah.
way, you know, like it doesn't matter whether you have a million bucks or whether you're down to your last $5. It's like you already declared within yourself that I am this, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I'm doing this, and like I'm not gonna be, thrown off, and it's not a problem for me if I'm poor sometimes and rich at other times, and like,
Yeah.
there's you figure it out, and then you see other people, and that's what I mean. You see other people who have also done that, and it might be in a medium or that you don't even relate to, like a fucking, a cause or a
Yeah.
sport or anything, and just knowing that they have also done that is fucking heavy for me
Yeah.
because that's how I've been, and I know what it's taken from me, and what I know what I've gone through and given up
Yeah.
to be here. And like, so when people are like, you're really lucky that you blah blah blah, and like you're really great, and it's like, dude,
You've never seen the whole picture. Like you've never
like,
ever
fuck,
seen
man.
the whole
It's
picture.
like, yeah, life is cool, I'm not gonna deny, like, life is fucking cool, but it's been like fucking almost my full life of singular dedication,
Yeah.
you know what I mean, no
And
matter
commitment
what.
is
So
freedom
yeah,
because it cuts off
yeah,
all the other options. And in some level, you're like, hey, I'm committed to this. And
yeah, yeah.
that's like to the exclusion of, oh, well, I mean, okay, you did a self-titled album. What kind of drove you to do that? And what does it mean? Like, it's kind of a big thing to do something with your own name on it. Is that
Oh
about
yeah.
this or like, is that
Well,
about that?
yeah. Well, like, so for me, like, obviously integration and intimacy and all those things are things that I struggle with. And I feel like, I compartmentalize myself a lot. And I do it musically, but I do it in my personal life too. It's that way if fires happen in one area, they can't bleed into other areas. And that, over time, it stops being something that you feel safe in, and it starts to feel frustrating because you're
Yeah.
constantly like sort of dealing with these different compartments that you've created in your life and different ways that you keep people from getting to you or keep people from like having a through line in your entire life, and like there's like a safety in that. But after a while it becomes unfulfilling. And over the past few years, like I feel like I've been sort of being drawn more towards integration and vulnerability as like I can tell that that's the way forward for me, growth wise,
Yeah.
artistically, psychologically. And I felt like, when I started writing music that turned into the solo record, and I knew that it was going to be a solo record, like my first immediate instinct was to call it something like a moniker. And that was because I was still trying to shield some element,
Yeah.
of myself. And when I realized that, I was like, damn, man, like you really can't even like you're trying like at every turn, like this is like going to be like a big one for you. Like
Yeah.
this is an opportunity. Like I said, this is an opportunity. And if you don't, everything you do is like you create, there's an opportunity, there. Like you want to maximize all of it, not just the marketing opportunities or the opportunities to get it to the most possible people, but the growth opportunities, for you
Yeah.
within it creatively. And I'm just like, man, like I don't know when the next time I'm going to do this is. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't know what this is even going to lead to, but if I don't call it my name, like I'm not, like I'm still protecting, I'm not operating from, I'm still protecting myself. And it's like all the reasons that I was thinking about doing it, it's like two other people are like, well, it's going to be easier to sell merch if you have a moniker, and I'm like, yeah, you're right. Like I can't just put Greg Puciato on a t-shirt. That's ridiculous. Like that's the guy the electric bill comes to. That's not, so it's like I create, in my brain, I created like a fucking replica of myself. And like I created like this other person that has my name, and that person has, is kind of like this representation of me that I've created artistically,
Yeah.
that plays shows and puts things out, and I'm in bands, and I check in on that guy, and I'm like, that guy's kicking ass. That guy seems like he's doing pretty good. All these people like his bands, and he's got all these different things out, and he's fucking kicking ass, and he's just like jumping off shit and doing all this cool stuff. And like, but behind the scenes, like the other person is like the person that knows, some of my friends, and the person that's intimate with people in his real life, and the electric bill comes to, and shit like that. And I always never would allow, I had a hard time allowing those people to fuse. And
Yeah.
I also really felt guilty as a person that's always been in bands. Like I'm really into being in bands, and I really like I fucking do a lot, like for the bands that I'm in. Like I
Yeah.
do like a lopsided amount of shit for every band that I'm in,
Yeah.
behind the scenes that people don't even know about. And like I fucking love playing for the team. Like I love it. Like I
Yeah.
love being a part of a team, and it makes you feel like you're playing for something bigger than yourself,
Yeah.
And
I'm
and
jealous of it, man. I've done so much shit on my own. I'm like, sometimes I
well,
look at
that's
bands and
too.
I'm like,
That's
that's a
part of why.
relationship. Yeah.
Well, that's where Federal Prisoner came from too. Is
Yeah.
like I couldn't just release something. I didn't want to just self-release something. It's like I felt like, being a part of Federal Prisoner makes me feel like I'm playing for a team, and
Yeah.
not just
Who's in that?
It's me, Jesse Draxler is, and then we have people that are, we pay behind the scenes
Yeah.
to to help do administrative stuff and customer service type stuff. And then we have like some, we have financial there's a financial component. We have some backers that, basically kind of help fund, and they just leave us alone, and they're like,
That's a fun
we'll
thing.
give you,
You
we'll give
made
you
a
this
thing.
amount of, yeah, we'll give you this amount of money, but basically we have like people that help fund things the way, but more, but not in a way where they get our rights the way like a label would, because,
Yeah.
they don't, you sign your rights away to a label and they fund you, they're a bank, but then, and they do all this other shit too, but I don't need all the other shit. I already learned how to do all the other shit,
Yeah.
so we just kind of partnered, with, and we don't need to use them. That's our arrangement. It's like, if we, if something is, we don't need to, fucking, and then, involve people financially, we can just do it all ourselves. And they don't have any actual rights to anything. We just
Yeah.
make like on a release to release basis, we involve them in like a back end percentage. You give them, once you pay them back, they get a percentage for a little while or something
Yeah.
like that. That to me, for me, that's way more sustainable for me going forward than signing my rights away to a label. And then you're a trophy in someone else's case. You're getting a shitty royalty rate. They're trying to fucking own your masters, and if they're not going to try to own them forever, they're going to try to own them as long as they can. And it's like, it's not forward momentum for me. It doesn't make me feel good. It's like, the more I activate and the more I can actualize, the stronger I am. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't stupid. Like, I'm not stupid. I know that like I have an audience that like is,
Listening.
I'm not dumb. Yeah. I know that I have people, that care enough that I don't need to fucking, rely on labels if I don't want to, and so, that was a big, thing for me. But again, like the fucking calling shit my name, that was the final piece for me that I just couldn't wrap my brain around. I couldn't come to terms with it, and I kept on, I've said this before, but I kept flipping, the names of all the demos when I had them in my iTunes. I would change them back and forth from like Child Soldier to Greg Puciato, and I could not, every time I saw it as my own name, I was like, fuck, man, I just can't deal with this. It was like too much,
Yeah,
and
it's intimate, man.
yeah, and then I
Yeah.
will say, like I said, things happen when they're supposed to happen. So I was right in the middle of tracking my record, and I was, like last October or so, we were like in the thick of it. We started tracking in September, and we were just about ready to start vocals, and that's when Cantrell hit me up and was like, hey, do you want to sing these songs at my show? I'm gonna do some LA shows. Do you want to sing? The I'm gonna do solo stuff and Alice in Chains stuff. Do you want to sing the Layne parts and do the harmonies?
Dude.
Do the harmonies on like my stuff? And I was like, obviously I'm gonna do that, So I did that. And then, when we were playing those shows and we are getting ready for those shows, I was like, man, it's like, he's not calling these shows, he put out 2 solo records like 20 years ago. So it's like, he didn't call those records. He didn't come up with a name for them. He called him his name. Like, that doesn't, like, why wouldn't you do that? And it's like, if I call it something else, I'm going to get sick of it in 10 years, 20 years. It's like, I got to do this. It's so important for me artistically and personally to get over this,
Yeah.
So,
what did it feel like to be in those parts and like harmonizing? And actually, that's what I was going to ask you about Killer Be Killed and the experience of harmonizing, because you have been like a singular vocalist for so long. How does it?
Well, yeah.
How did it feel in that show? Because I had a spiritual experience the last time I saw Alice in Chains. I found like I was like backstage shooting shit, and I found like this weird like cave where all the guitars were coming into. I don't understand anything about the logistics of the way they set up the stage, but I found like the weird little circle where all the guitars were hitting harder than anywhere else in the room, and I was like, oh, this is pleasant. This is pleasant.
I mean, it's a trip, Like, I mean, Jerry and I are close now personally, so he's, again, he's like, my buddy. Like, but like, I mean, at the time, like, it was like, it's a real trip. Like, it's a real trip because it was real heavy to like step into the, a lot of those songs were sang, by someone that not only was I, a fan of, but it's like one of the greatest rock singers of all time.
Yes.
But like someone that like that person is, talking about this plane is gone in this physical realm. But like, I very much felt the weight of, and I hate even saying this kind of shit because it sounds so fucking so crazy, hippy dippy and mystical, but I've really felt the weight of that energy and that spirit, like in those fucking moments and in those songs. There was a moment during the second show, I think, or I don't know if it might have been in the end of the first one. I can't remember. I was so fucked up, but like there was a moment in one of those shows that like I just became overwhelmed with like this fucking emotion. Like I started crying like during the song that we were singing, and like in a way that I've never felt before, because I felt so overwhelmed with like that person's energy that was had been like infused into these songs, and that I felt was in the room at the time too. Like it really felt like there was like this presence in the room. But like from a physical standpoint, like the harmonies and everything, I learned a lot. Like I've never had to work that closely with another vocalist before, and he's extremely talk about knowing what he wants. You know, he knows exactly what he wants, and he's a pitch perfect singer.
Yeah.
And like he will tell you like if you're, you know, not like. So I mean, he was really quick to tell me that I was the guy. Like when I went over and like, I went to his house and like sang, you know, Wood and Down at a Hole, and like, you know, I only sang Wood one time, and he was like, all right, cool, you're the guy. And I was like, really? And he's like, yeah, you're it. And and I said, I can sing. I'll do Down in a Hole too, bro, if you want me to do it. Like, and he was like, if you want to. And I was like, yeah, I do, because fucking I practiced this and I just want to do it. Let me just do it. And then I did it, and I didn't do it that great, and I kind of fucked up a little bit. And then I was like, I want to do it again, so I did it again. And, you know, I'm a crazy person. And then he was like, dude, all right, you're good. You got it. You're good. You know, I got some phone calls I got to make, so if you can go. So then, yeah, then
Get out of here.
But then, you know, then he hits me up and he's like, hey, man, I thought, you know, I only wanted you to do like a few, but can you do like all of them? And I was like, well, how many is it? And he's like 30. Can you learn like 30 songs in like the next fucking month? And I was like, oh my God, you know, so I stopped my recording, and then I, you know, basically just immersed myself in all those songs. And, you know, it's a lot different when you're learning harmonies than it is when you're learning the whole song. Because in your head, you know all the lyrics. So you're just singing them all in your head. But half the time there's someone harmonizing. Half the time there's someone isn't. Most of the time you're not thinking of the harmony. You're thinking of the main.
Yeah.
So I had to relearn all those songs from a position of like, what's the harmony and when am I not singing? You know, because you're like, you've sung along to those songs in your head so many times that you're like, oh shit, right, I don't sing here. I just don't do anything for the next 20 seconds. And then I come in for like one fucking word. It's like, you just sing one harmony and then you come back out, you know, and you're just like, okay, it's like a fucking much different process learning harmonies. But you have to be really fucking exact, because if you're on your own, you're singing on your own. If you go a little flat or a little sharp, like no one really knows, no one really cares. There's no real dissonance. There's no real rub. And but if you're singing with someone else and they're fucking dead on and you fucking are a little off, it's like, like you can, it's like really fucking in your face that you fucking are, you know, you sang a little sharp, you sang a little flat. So it was like boot camp. It was like vocal boot camp. And you know, like I don't think I got, you know, I didn't smoke weed that entire time, didn't drink that entire time. Like I really fucking was like on my shit, like for like, you know, 30 straight days, because I had to be like razor sharp, you know, because it's like you fuck up and he's sitting next to you on a goddamn stool. That's the other thing. You can't like, you're not running around saying, you're not in front of strobe lights and all kinds of crazy shit and smoke and fog and, you know, a million decibels. You're just sitting on a stool in front of like the most diehard Alice in Chains fans in existence. You know what I mean? They're just like, oh my God, dude, Jesus Christ, you know? So fucking, I was all stressed the fuck out. So by the time I got to the shows, I was like so over prepared. I could have sung that set like fucking 6 times in a row, and you know, I was so over conditioned, that you know, when we left it and I went back to recording vocals, I immediately did my album and then Killer Be Killed like back to back. So I went into those fucking sessions with like my voice being better than it's ever been. Haven't been on, you know, I haven't been screaming 200 nights out of the year either for the last 3 years. So my voice was already better than it's been, you know, probably for the last 20 years. So, but then doing that really fucking took me to another level of like conditioning and like and kind of just like knowledge of my own voice and physicality and things like that. And I was more elastic kind of than I've ever been, and like my knowledge of harmonies and shit, and just like really being able to lock in with another singer was better. So it changed my record. There's sort of my record I for sure wouldn't have done if I hadn't done those shows. But then going to Killer Be Killed, like the way I approached my vocals was definitely a lot less like, here's your part, here's my part, here's my, you know, in succession, and more about like how could I complement what you're doing as you're doing it, you know? And does that mean like a harmony? Does it mean, you know, doing an accompanying vocal? Does it, you know, just something that you can do? Because the first record I feel like was like, if I'm A and Troy's B and Max is C, we're just like, it's more linear. It's like, here's the A part, here's the B part, here's the C part, here's the B part, here's the A part. You're going like in a linear way. And this way, you know, after coming out of the Cantrell thing, where the primary vocal is kind of weaving in and out constantly, and sometimes it's Layne and sometimes it's Jerry, and it definitely made me approach the Killer Be Killed vocals as more of like a weave, instead of a linear succession. You know?
It really sounds like that. I thought like these are high points vocally for you for sure. Like it's undeniable. Like
for Troy too. Troy fucking crushes on that record.
Dude.
I really, to me, I'm like, damn, this was and I feel like all the Mastodon guys have been pointing this way for a while. And I said this to Braun after their last record, but like, I feel like on this record for Troy, like he elevated to a point where even if he wasn't a guy that also played bass, he would be a killer singer. Like he's a killer frontman on his own, you know? And like, it doesn't need 2 other guys, doesn't need to play bass to validate it. You know, it's like on your own, you just came out of the gate, like on the first fucking line of the first song on the record, he came out fucking swinging, you know, in
Yeah.
a way that I was like, God damn, dude. All right. Yeah, fuck. Yeah, I had to go reapproach my whole shit. I was just like, all right, Troy. Cool, bro. That's how you're gonna start. Great.
Yeah.
You just fucking just
So it
walked
was a
out.
really
Just came
chill
out of the
period.
dugout. Yeah, you just came. You know, I know you have baseball down there, but you just came out of the dugout and just like smacked a casual home run, you know, out of the park, and then just got, you know, walked back off of the, you know, off of the field. I was like, all right, cool. That's the way you're gonna roll. All right.
So this was a really relaxed point in your vocal life.
Yeah,
No
but no,
pressure.
it's good. It fucking the combo of like fucking Jerry into my record into KBK like back to back to back. It's like really profound uh growth for me, you know,
Yeah.
from like a singing standpoint. And I'm really grateful to have, you know, it's like you have someone like that. It's like, you know, I've had other instances in my life where, you know, I've been like it's like early on in Dillinger having, you know, people always are like, was it stressful for your first record to come after Pat? And it's like, yeah, it's stressful, but it's also that's what you want. Like you
Yeah.
want like I tell people, if you're Kobe Bryant and you're a rookie, you want to go up against Michael Jordan, you know, even if he schools you a little bit,
Yeah.
because if you think you got the stuff, you want to fucking test it out, and you want to fucking have to go up against the best, and you want to be, you know, you want to see what you're made of. And it's like, you know, when other people in other times have kind of like given me the nod, whether it's like Trent or fucking Deftones, and been like, hey, we want you to come do this. It's kind of like them seeing, you know, it's like them being like, hey, we think that you're, you know, capable of this. Are you going to rise to this occasion or not? You know?
Yeah.
And then so the Jerry thing, it's like, that was a profound, it's like, you know, I'm either going to fucking step up and be able to operate, you know, on this level too, or I'm not, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, so being able to do that and then go right into my records was kind of like, fuck yeah. All right. It's like 40, top of my game.
Yeah,
That shit's
boom.
fucking,
Well, it's
I'm lucky that to get out of 20 years of Dillinger Escape Plan without my vocal cords being Swiss cheese.
totally,
You know?
man. It's actually unbelievable. Like you should be damaged. You
Dude,
should
one of
be
the first
damaged.
things I did, like the first month out, like January, after the fucking, because, you know, the final
Yeah,
shows
yeah,
were in
yeah.
December. January 2018, I went to an ENT, and this ENT who is like, you know, this Beverly Hills ENT who did Cornell, and he's, you know, he does all these A-lister people. He's like
Yeah.
an old guy, so he stuffed the thing up my nose and the camera. He's looking at my thing, and he's like, I want you to sing, I want you to scream, I want you to do all this stuff. Looked at my vocal cords, and he was like, "You're good." I was like, "Really?"
That's amazing.
Like, really? It's like when you fucking, you know, it's like you party a lot and then you go to your, you know, do your physical and the doctor tells you that your heart's looking good and you're like, really? Like fucking, I tell you about talk about all the drugs I've done. Are you sure? Sure my heart's okay, bud? And he's, yeah, like your heart's still good, you know? I'm like, all right, cool, you know? So you go to, you know, go into the ENT, and when he told me I didn't have any damage, I was like, Jesus Christ, man, like fucking, all right, you know? That's
I think
fucking,
it's psychological. Like I think resilience. Like I've got yeah. I know people who are just so unbelievably resilient from like human trauma, from whatever, like going pretty hard in the the partying realm, like, and they're just like unbelievably and it's like not everyone's like that, and I don't know whether it's genetic or whether it's a thing or whether it's like developing scar tissue or something like that.
Fucking I'm just stubborn, man. You know, I just don't like I resist like everything like pretty heavily, so I think that like I'm the type of person that if they have to put me out for like a fucking surgery or something, I always need like 5 times the amount of that they say I'm gonna need, because I just resist, you know. Like takes a lot for me to stop fighting, you know. So I think my vocal cords probably just were like, no, you're gonna do this to us every night. We're gonna be like, nope.
We're
I'm
tough.
gonna be fine.
Yeah, it's just gonna be fine. Well, it's like, and the whole premise of like putting yourself up against the best of the best is like, it's so the artist instead of the spectator. Like, I'd rather be in the ring, covered in blood, lying on the floor, than be in the stands. Like, just 100%. On any level. Like, just I'm sorry, like that's where I want to be.
That's where I engage,
and I don't give a shit. Like, whether it.
Yeah, man.
Oh well, actually, I have to ask, what Trent and Deftones? Like, tell me about those experiences.
I mean, I've known those guys for a long time, so it was, you know, but to be asked to come out and sing with someone is different than just knowing people personally.
Yes.
You know?
Just
that's a different like level of like someone's vouching for you for their, it's more than opening for them even. It's like you're vouching for them to sing their actual song with them. And the Deftones, when it's like, hey, do you want to come sing Maynard's part? So it was like it was like
shit.
on, you know, it's like on a different, it's like double. It's like, it's not just singing like, you know, a band song, you're singing again with another one of these
Layne.
guys who's one of the greatest of all time. So it's like now it's like I've fucking sang Patton's stuff with Dillinger. I've sang fucking, Maynard shit with Deftones. I've sang Trent stuff with Nine Inch Nails. I've sang fucking Layne's stuff with Jerry. It's like, what the fuck? So it's like, oh, the 90s, all these people from the 90s are like, my son, come here, my child. Let me go. So I'm just like, oh, that's cool. Yeah. They're like, you are one of us. But no, that's cool. I'm like, fuck, that's really cool. And I don't take it lightly, and I take it very seriously, and like anytime one of those people has given me, those kind of, the trust is really putting a lot of trust in me, that I take it really seriously. And like, I take, what I do really seriously now too, not just from preserving myself artistically, but like I do take care of my voice, and now, and like I never used to, but I do now. And like, I do like, I know what I need to get to where I need to go to be where I need to be physically every night when I'm on tour and for the studio. And there's a litany of stuff that goes into it. And there's a million things that are part of that regimen, from like your sleep to your hydration to supplements to fucking warming up to like all these different little things that you do to fucking, make sure that you're where you need to be. And like, that's and when you get to a certain level, you have to, you really can't fuck around with it.
It's like being an athlete.
You look at people at the end too. You look at people late, and it's like the people that do sound fucking amazing, like Dio or fucking Steven Tyler, people these are older that still fucking sound unreal. And then you have Vince Neil. Yeah, so it's like,
Neil. Oh my god, that's like, Motley Crue are the most walked out of. I asked my friends, have you ever walked out of a show because it sucked? And Motley Crue is 100% the number one for that. It's just like, what are you doing?
Like, you take yourself seriously or not, you know? And it's like, it's like you take care of your shit, and like you can't, it's like when I was around, he passed away, but like I went to, we were on tour with Soundgarden. It's like seeing Cornell every night was like fucking unbelievable. Like it was like he looked like a god, he sounded like a god. I was like, god damn, man, that dude shows up, fucking looks cool, fucking trim. It's like Duff McKagan, looks cool, trim, fucking looks like the best version of himself he's ever looked. Is playing better than he's ever played. Sounds fucking incredible every night, and he doesn't feel guilty about doing the things that he needs to do to get there. If he needs fucking this kind of thing and to be left alone during this time and do this kind of yoga and sit and do this kind of warm up and drink this kind of tea and not do this and do that, like you just fucking realize that, what, fuck it. If you got to be precious, it's not the most rock and roll thing ever, but like it's like if you got to do the shit that you need to get you to a certain point, like don't feel guilty about it, because if you want to operate at a certain level and you want to keep operating at that level, you got to fucking protect your shit. You can't fucking just. It doesn't, you can't be like, oh man, I just fucking do whatever and I get on stage and sound the way I sound. It's like, no, dude, no one, exactly, you're an athlete.
Yeah.
You gotta fucking,
don't mess around.
You gotta take it fucking seriously.
I learnt Fell on Black Days, and by the end of it I was just like, can you even do this? Can you even do this in the world?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah,
and like even like can you even, is it a thing a human can learn? Like some things are like that.
It's outrageous. And he was, it's crazy because, he was still operating at such a high level too.
Right till the end. Like,
yeah, that's what was so fucking crushing for me. It fucked me up, it fucked me up when I learned about it, because I had just seen him. I saw him the day before,
God.
So it's like, we were on tour with them when it happened. We were splitting,
really?
Yeah, we were splitting opening slots every other day with the Pretty Reckless. So us and the Pretty Reckless were going back and forth. And Taylor's, I know Taylor too, and we're friends. So like, we were all, we're geeked out, and she's a big, Soundgarden fan too. So like we had just seen them. And I like the day prior, and like so like to me he was the model of someone that I thought had it all together, because you don't know what people are struggling with behind the scenes, but I knew that he had overcome a lot of anxiety and depression, and I knew that he used to deal with a lot of it, and I knew that he used to deal with substance shit, and like, but now and I knew that he did go through a period where his voice got a little rough and shit like that, and like chain smoking or what have you, and like started to sound like AC/DC a little bit during those Audio Slave years, So it's like, but like when I saw him, like fucking when he was on our tour, it's like, dude, he was fucking in incredible shape. He fucking sounded amazing, like he was fucking like had it all together. He seemed like he had a fucking family, had a great solo career. He had his band back together. He was, just like, damn, man. I was like, that is the model for how to make it through, just a life of creativity and shit, and going off the rails at times, and just coming out the other side of it with all the pieces in place in a way that you can have like this real balanced existence. And so when that happened, I was like, oh fuck, it like shook me, man, to know that you can get to that point and have all that stuff, and that you can still find yourself in this place, in the middle of the night when no one's around, where you think where it makes you hit the eject button, even when you think you have all that shit outwardly. It's like,
and it scares me.
And that fucked me up, shook me, fucked me up. Like I cried immediately when I heard the news, and it sat me down, man. Because like I said, he was kind of like at that moment, in those preceding weeks, he had kind of been my model of like, damn, you can really fucking tighten your shit up and have it all, like
Yeah.
as you go. Yeah.
It
And
scares me
so
where
then it was,
people
yeah.
go. Like where people go when that's the decision they make. Like where did they go? I had this weird actual psychedelic experience lately where I've lost like 4 people who were close to me, and I was like, I had this like total flash of like, they had to be somewhere else. They had some shit to do. Like wherever it is, I don't know. But like they were needed elsewhere. So don't feel, it's hard not to feel pain for people. Like, you know, pain.
Yeah.
Well, it's a pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice, but that doesn't mean you don't make that choice. But it's like that thing. It's like maybe he was needed somewhere else. Maybe there was some fucking realm where that guy, he was the only guy for the job. You know,
dude, you ever hear? I'm gonna trip you off because I know that I know that you for sure thought this, because this is kind of the shit that you think when you start to go down these roads.
Yeah.
And how many times have you thought that you've already you already died, and this is like some long prolonged death experience that you're in, or that at the
you
moment
don't exist,
or at the moment that you die, you immediately like split off into a different reality where you didn't die. You know, so like you just like. The car accident that you escaped from, that, you know, in that reality you died, but you splintered off into the reality that you didn't die, you know, and you just keep going in like this other thing, or you died at that moment, but you're having like this really long near death experience, you know, that like all this cool shit's happening in, you know, because like, you know, and that's just stretching on forever. You know, that's what always trips me out sometimes. If I get too far, you know, I was hit by a car when I was 9 years old, and it, like,
holy shit.
I lost consciousness for like a couple days, like the day before my 9th birthday, and I spent the whole day of my 9th birthday fucking in the hospital. As I got plucked, you know, I got plucked by like a truck in the face, like I was right in the street, and knocked me out, like sent me flying like 20 feet. And you're a kid, so you don't process any trauma, and you know, I lost all kinds of blood, and I woke up in the hospital with all these tubes in me and shit, and got told what happened. And then I was just like, am I going to live, and do I get to miss a lot of school and play video games and guitar? Like, and when the answer was yes, I was like, cool, you know. And then like chicks are all like, like, oh, they're, you know, when they were all like more sympathetic towards me. So I'm like, oh, I'm getting all this attention from girls because I got you know, hit by a truck. So I was all get to play Nintendo for 2 weeks, you know, all this other stuff. So you know, I never really processed it. And then, like, you know, later in life, it started to come back and hit me, and I started to kind of have all this like residual, you know, trauma and panic attacks related to it. And you know, because as you get older, the compartments that you store your shit in start to kind of open up, you know.
Yeah.
And like I was like, oh damn, like I basically almost died at 9 years old, and then I just didn't fucking deal with it. I didn't ever like think about that. And now that I'm in my 30s, it's suddenly like randomly out of nowhere, I'm dreaming about, you know, getting hit by a truck, or I'm fucking, you know, starting to feel afraid of going to sleep, you know, because I think I'm not gonna wake up, like symptom of terminal illness, like I'm frightened in sleep, thinking my world will be known, whatever. So like I'm fucking starting to have all these issues with like being afraid. I can't get put under for anything. I'm horrified to get put under if I need to get put under. I'm horrified to, like, sometimes I'd be scared to go to sleep, and it all got traced back to this car thing. And then, you know, I started thinking, so then I started thinking that like fuck, you know, I'm like, fuck, I wonder if like I got put into a coma when I was 9, or like I died when I was 9, and this is either like a long, like, you know, near death experience, or I'm in this fucking coma. It's like, yeah, of course my life is fucking, you know, hanging out with all these fucking people that I was a fucking fan of when I was a kid. It's like, of course I'm fucking friends with fucking this guy and that guy, and I'm doing this thing and that thing, and I've been in a rock band my whole, like been a fucking, you know, minor rock person my whole life or whatever, and just leading this cool life and doing all this cool shit. Yeah, of course you are, dude. But, you know, like, what are the odds of that? You know, like 0. You're really lying in a hospital bed in Baltimore, you know, and it's only been a few days, you know, or it's been 30 years and you're stuck in a coma, you know, or you died on the spot, and this is all the fucking, you know, the near death experience that you get to have, you know. But if any of that's real, even that were to be real, it wouldn't even matter.
No,
like, it doesn't even matter. Who cares? You know,
no.
Like it doesn't. Your reality is what it is, regardless of whether it's a fucking, you know, regardless of what it is, you know. So
just keep on trucking.
Yeah, just keep on going.
What else can you do?
Yeah.
What else can you do with that? Like, what else
nothing.
can we do? You know?
No, I think that's what people. I think when people trip out wondering like whether or not this is like a fucking simulation, or whether or not this is like a dream or something, eventually you just get to the same end, which is like, well, who cares?
Yeah.
What if it is? You know? You still gotta fucking make, you know, you're still here either way, regardless of what it is, and you gotta do something. You know, so
try and be pure of heart or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, what else can you do but that?
Yeah.
I think that's. I think we should. That should be that's a beautiful. I think that's the end. I think that's the end of this experience.
Yeah, I'll go
I
eat some
think
food.
yeah,
I'm gonna
I
go
think
eat 10 food.
you should eat 10
since the-
foods. Eat all the foods because it's
I'm gonna go.
important.
I'm gonna go eat make believe food in my. I'm gonna go eat dream food in my.
Yes.
In my. In this.
Sustenance.
Yes, in the coma, it turns out you can eat too. You know?
Yeah. Well, that's a positive. You got to
Yeah.
eat ice cream. Be committed to ice cream.
Yeah,
Ice cream's
exactly.
a real thing.
Fuck
It's
yeah.
important. It's an important part of life. Like if you don't
What's your
respect
favorite?
ice cream,
What's your flavor?
well, I think there's like a
Any
tiramisu
ice
one.
cream?
I'm
Alright.
vegan, but like there's this fucking like amazing Greek like old man who makes like crazy vegan ice cream that's just insane. I like tricking people who are ice cream connoisseurs, but like the best ice cream connoisseur will be broken. Like they will know.
All right.
You
Yeah.
can't-
Next
yeah.
time.
Yeah.
When I get back fucking
gotta come
down
back
under,
here.
when I get fucking down under,
Yeah, you
I'm gonna fucking.
It's Australia. You got to experience this. It's a
I'm
way
gonna
of
get
life.
some of this. Yeah,
Yeah,
we're gonna have to
dude.
go, and I'm gonna have to eat the ice cream.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm gonna get it.
That's actually a solid Australian accent.
Yeah, I've gotten it down. You know.
Yeah, you've
Fucking-
done some experience. You've done some.
I've spent some time down there, mate. Just
Yeah.
fucking
That's really good.
fucking about, having a
Well,
fucking
as-
fix the pits with me, mates.
as
Fucking
I- as
fucking
I would
around
say-
and fucking driving my hoon around, fucking.
Yeah, we're not here to fuck spiders. I think is my favorite
Yes.
Australian
Yeah, obviously,
expression.
your slang is above and beyond the best in the world.
It's
you know,
insane. Like that
Just-
is so evocative.
When
Like-
you think you've got it all, dude, someone says there's another one that you guys will throw out that you're like, what the fuck?
We're
Like, you can't-
criminals. You know,
Yeah,
it's
awesome.
like it's jail
Awesome.
talk. It's
Yeah, I
it's
appreciate
ancient jail talk, and that's a beautiful thing.
Well,
Well, thank you.
yeah, thank you
Hey,
for
that
this
was
fucking.
the void. We got down,
Yeah.
like we got down into the fucking void.
We went into the actual.
Yeah,
void.
we went into it, and that's what's the point if you're not getting into the void?
This is an experience of the void.